replied, "Oh," before falling silent. After the meal, Fang Shuo took Guogua to school. Then he picked up Yanqi and met up with Hu Yurin and Qian Lai before heading straight to Qindao's real estate sales center. Chen was usually there at this time. Although all the units had already been sold, construction wasn't fully complete yet, so he had to stay on site to supervise and prevent any last-minute problems. When they arrived at the sales center and saw Qindayo, the man greeted Fang Shuo with great enthusiasm. Though he and Hu Yurin were old friends, he treated Fang Shuo with even warmer respect. After all, Fang had saved his life. If not for Fang Shuo, Chen would have died unjustly. "Brother Fang, what brings you here today? Come in, take a seat." Chen welcomed them warmly. Hu Yurin teased, "Old guy, do you only see Brother Fang now and just ignore me?" Chen laughed heartily. "We're old buddies. Do I really need to welcome you formally? Just grab a seat anywhere. You've been here enough times." Once everyone was seated, Fang Shuo got to the point. "Old brother Chen, I came today because I need a favor." Chen waved his hand generously. "Whatever you need, Brother Fang, just say it. If it's within my power, I'll make it happen." "Well, I'm planning to set up an agricultural base. I've already picked out a location and done my research. But I know that to build such a base, I first need official approval for the land use. I'm completely unfamiliar with this process, but since you're in real estate, I figured you must know how it works. So I thought I'd ask you, any connections or leads you could introduce me to?" Upon hearing this, Chen paused and pondered for a moment before replying. "Brother Fang, I don't mean to discourage you, but although I do have some contacts who might help with land approvals, setting up an agricultural base isn't easy, not by a long shot. Approval is just the beginning. Even among us in the property business, many have considered venturing into agriculture, but most eventually gave up due to all kinds of obstacles along the way. You know Xiao Xuejin, right? He once wanted to start an agricultural base too, but after running into various roadblocks, he abandoned the idea and switched to building residential apartments instead. You know, Xiao Xuejin managed to launch projects right in the city center. He's well-connected and resourceful. If even someone like him couldn't pull it off, you can imagine how tough this really is." Fang Shuo smiled. "Old brother Chen, I appreciate the warning. I understand it's full of challenges and won't be easy. But if we give up at the first sign of difficulty, how can we ever accomplish anything worthwhile? Remember, anything that's truly profitable is never simple. Didn't you yourself barely survive a crisis when getting through your real estate project? You made it through precisely because you didn't back down." Chen froze for a second, then found himself nodding unconsciously. Fang Shuo's words hit home. Nothing meaningful in life comes easily. Fear of difficulty leads to stagnation, and that spells failure in any endeavor. He began to feel a flicker of admiration for Fang Shuo. To move forward bravely despite knowing the obstacles ahead, even if success isn't guaranteed, that kind of perseverance deserves respect. What Chen didn't know, however, was that Fang Shuo's confidence stemmed from his knowledge of future urban development policies that would soon greatly benefit agricultural ventures. Yes, Xiao Xuejin had failed, but the reason lay in timing. When Xiao attempted his project, there was no supportive government policy, which made everything difficult. Fang Shuo knew better. The time had changed. In the near future, agricultural development would receive strong municipal support, and policies would become much more lenient. Moreover, the issues Qindayo had mentioned weren't obstacles at all in Fang Shuo's eyes. He had already planned everything out. After discussing for a while, they decided that Qindayo would handle the land approval process for the project. However, to formally apply for the approval, Fang Shuo first needed to establish a company of his own. Applying for project land under the name of a company was a requirement. After leaving Qindayo's place, Hu Yurin couldn't help but ask, "Brother Fang, what are your thoughts on setting up a company?" Fang Shuo smiled. "Establishing a company is inevitable sooner or later. What we've been doing before were all speculative ventures, seizing opportunities to make quick profits so we could accumulate wealth rapidly. But that's not sustainable. Making money through speculation might bring fast gains, but it disappears even faster. To achieve sustained growth, we must build our own enterprise. That's why we absolutely need a company of our own. Of course, I can't do this alone. Our registered capital must be substantial. Too little, and the company won't appear credible enough. With insufficient scale, there's no way we'd pass the land approval application. So I'll have to count on you two seniors for help. Let's pool all our assets together as the company's registered capital, and each of us will own a share in the company. What do you think?" Hu Yurin and Qian Lai didn't hesitate at all. They immediately nodded in agreement. In fact, the so-called registered capital only needed to be present in the bank account during company registration. After the company was officially established, the funds could be withdrawn again. Once the three reached an agreement, they headed straight to the Bureau of Industry and Commerce to register the company. Fang Shuo had long decided on the company's name, Jiangzhou Zhongding Development Company, Ltd. The registered capital amounted to 20 million yuan, 8 million provided by Fang Shuo, and 6 million each by Hu Yurin and Qian Lai. As for the share distribution, it followed the same ratio. Fang Shuo held 40%, while Hu Yurin and Qian Lai each held 30%. The three of them formed a rudimentary board of directors. Whenever an important decision arose, they would hold a meeting and vote. Chapter 130, High-End Restaurant. With the company now established, they could formally apply for project land use. Qindayo, being in the real estate business, was well familiar with this entire process and had the necessary connections. Within just a few days, Qindayo informed Fang Shuo that the approval had gone through. The area within a 5-kilometer radius centered on that mountain village could now be used as an agricultural base. There was official documentation for the approval, though the paperwork itself wouldn't arrive immediately. Even though the approval had been granted, it still needed to go through several layers of departmental signatures before it could be officially issued and delivered into Feng Shua's hands. This would be a long process, something he couldn't rush. Fortunately, Feng Shua still had other preparations to handle, so he didn't need to push things at this moment. It was the weekend again. Feng Shua recalled having upset Long Wanqing earlier, and she still hadn't forgiven him. He wondered whether he should take Guogua and invite her to an amusement park. Even if she was still angry, surely she wouldn't refuse outright when Guogua was involved. As Feng Shua pondered how best to approach Long Wanqing, his phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Xiao Mei. Seeing her name flash on the screen, Feng Shua couldn't help but frown. Ever since he'd helped her a few times in the past, she'd been contacting him frequently. He wasn't sure if it was just his imagination, but Feng Shua felt that she was subtly hinting at something, either directly or indirectly. Xiao Mei was very forward, lacking the shyness or restraint typical of younger girls. This put Feng Shua somewhat on edge. He worried that one day he might lose control and make a serious mistake. After the phone had rung a few times, he sighed and finally answered. Xiao Mei, what's up? Xiao Mei laughed. Feng Shua, are you free today? I told you I'd treat you and Guogua to dinner. Since it's the weekend, I figured you'd probably be free. I know a great restaurant. How about we go there? Feng Shua hesitated. He had originally wanted to decline, but if he did so now, Xiao Mei would surely keep pursuing him. After thinking it over, he decided it was better to just accept. Besides, he hadn't clearly rejected her invitation back then. Refusing again now would make him seem cold and ungrateful. So Feng Shua nodded and said, all right, send me the address. I'll bring Guogua over. After hanging up, he got Guogua changed into clean clothes, and they headed out together. They got in the car and left the residential compound. Just at the gate, they ran into Long Wanqing again. She appeared to have been out all night and had only just returned. Seeing Guogua, Long Wanqing smiled. Little Guogua, going somewhere today? Guogua nodded happily. Yeah, Aunt Xiao is treating Dad and me to dinner. Long Wanqing blinked in surprise. Aunt Xiao? Who's Aunt Xiao? Guogua replied cheerfully. She's Mommy's friend. Long Wanqing opened her mouth, as if wanting to say something, but ultimately stayed silent. She glanced briefly at Feng Shua, then nodded. Okay then, have fun. As she raised her hand to wave goodbye to Guogua, Feng Shua spoke first. You've seemed really busy lately. Always coming home late in the morning, huh? Long Wanqing snorted coldly, saying flatly, what's it got to do with you? We're just ordinary friends. You don't need to concern yourself with me. With that, she waved once more at Guogua and walked away without looking back. Feng Shua shook his head with a helpless smile. Long Wanqing was too sensitive. Why was she still mad? Sighing in resignation, he started the engine and drove out of the compound. When they arrived at the restaurant Xiao Mei had mentioned, Feng Shua was genuinely surprised. It was a full-fledged French restaurant, clearly high-end. Ordinary salaried workers probably never dined here. In those days, eating Western food was considered quite luxurious. Only families with exceptional financial means would come here to eat. Feng Shua hadn't expected Xiao Mei to choose such a place. Guogua, however, seemed delighted. After glancing around at the entrance, she exclaimed, this place looks so fancy. Their steak must be super delicious. Feng Shua chuckled and said, you're only thinking about food. Remember to mind your manners later. After all, Aunt Zhao's treating us. Her salary isn't high. Don't eat her broke in one meal. Guogua stuck out her tongue playfully. Okay, got it. Walking into the restaurant, a waiter approached them politely, asking, sir, do you have a reservation? Feng Shua shook his head. A friend is already here. The waiter glanced around the dining area and spotted Xiao Mei sitting alone by the window. Is it that young lady? The waiter asked. Yes, that's her. Feng Shua nodded. Very well, please follow me. Under the waiter's guidance, Feng Shua and Guogua walked over and sat down across from Xiao Mei. Guogua greeted politely. Hello, Aunt Xiao. Xiao Mei smiled. Guogua is so well behaved. I've always envied your mom for having such a lovely daughter. If only I had a daughter like you, I'd be over the moon. Feng Shua said coolly. Then you should find someone soon, get married, and have children. That way, you can have your own child. Xiao Mei sighed. I'd love to, but Aunt isn't something you can just summon at will. Otherwise, do you think I'd still be single all this time? Unwilling to continue this topic, Feng Shua picked up the menu and said, let's order first. After they opened the menus, Xiao Mei was immediately dumbfounded. She never expected the entire menu to be written in French. Even though she knew this was an authentic French restaurant, surely they wouldn't go so far as to use only French on the menu? Looking around at the other diners, she couldn't help but wonder. No wonder there were so few guests. How could anyone dare come here with a setup like this? Fortunately, while Xiao Mei couldn't understand it, Feng Shua could. During his previous life, he had lived abroad for some time and learned several languages, including French. Sensing Xiao Mei's embarrassment, he put down the menu and said, can't read it? Don't worry. Just tell me what you'd like to eat, and I'll order for you. Xiao Mei asked in surprise, you can actually read French? Before Feng Shua could respond, a sharp voice rang out. This is a high-end French restaurant. Never thought someone like you would show up here. Feng Shua looked up toward the voice and saw a young woman walking over, arm in arm with a tall, handsome man in a suit. When Xiao Mei saw the woman, her expression changed instantly. Her face darkened as she muttered under her breath. What bad luck. Why did I have to run into her? Feng Shua asked. Do you know her? Xiao Mei nodded. That woman's name is Shunjia. She's my coworker at the new company. The man with her is her boyfriend, Zhong Tian. He works there too. I don't know why, but Xinjia always targets me and picks fights. I've never done anything to offend her. Chapter 131, Hidden Intentions. As they were speaking, Zhong Tian and Xinjia approached. When they saw Feng Shuo and Guogua, a look of surprise flickered across their faces. Shen Jie glanced at Feng Shuo a few times, then said to Xiaomei, "Oh, is this your husband and daughter? But your personnel file says you're unmarried and single." Xiaomei quickly explained, "He's just a friend who helped me out recently. I invited them for a meal to show my appreciation." Zhong Tian also looked Feng Shuo over briefly before smiling and saying, "Xiaomei, what a coincidence running into you here. Since we've met by chance, it must be fate. Why don't we share a table? This meal is on me, your whole party's dinner." From Zhong Tian's clothing alone, it was clear he came from a well-off family. The suit he wore probably cost no less than 10 or 20,000 yuan, a high-end brand that ordinary salaried workers could never afford. Feng Shuo noticed that Zhong Tian kept glancing at Xiaomei, seemingly unconsciously yet deliberately. To stare so openly at another woman while standing beside his own girlfriend, Zhong Tian was being rather brazen. Shen Jie surely understood this too, which explained why she was always targeting Xiaomei. Still, she was rather ridiculous. Instead of reining in her own boyfriend, she directed all her hostility toward Xiaomei. It was completely backwards. Xiaomei might not have picked up on the subtleties, but Feng Shuo had lived 2 lifetimes. His experience and insight were frighteningly deep. With just a glance, he could read through people and situations. When Zhong Tian suggested sharing a table, both Xiaomei and Shen Jie frowned, clearly reluctant. Yet Shen Jie seemed to obey her boyfriend without question, so despite her displeasure, she didn't voice any objections. Xiaomei hesitated. They were colleagues after all, and refusing Zhong Tian outright would seem unfriendly. What if it embarrassed him? How would they work together afterward? After a moment of hesitation, she reluctantly nodded. "Well, all right, but we'll order our own food. You don't need to pay for us." With that, Xiaomei stood up and squeezed onto one side of the booth with Feng Shuo and Guogua. Zhong Tian and Shen Jie sat opposite them. Zhong Tian called over a waiter and took the menu. Seeing that it was entirely in French, Shen Jie chuckled lightly. "Xiaomei, I didn't expect you'd come here. This is a high-end Western restaurant. This meal might cost half a month's salary for you. But it's different for us. Zhong Tian brings me here often, so I know the menu well. Oh, by the way, I saw you staring at the menu earlier. You couldn't understand the French, could you? Don't worry, though, I can help you order. I don't speak French either, but after coming so many times, I know exactly what's on the menu." Shen Jie's teasing made Xiaomei feel embarrassed. Indeed, she hadn't expected the menu to be in French, and now she felt rather awkward. She even regretted coming here with Feng Shuo without checking things out first. It didn't matter if she looked foolish, but if she caused Feng Shuo to lose face, wouldn't he hate her for it? Fortunately, Feng Shuo didn't seem to be paying attention to their conversation. He was intently studying the menu, apparently preparing to place an order. Zhong Tian set down his menu and smiled at Xiaomei. "Shen Jie's right. I come here often. If you're not familiar with the dishes, I'd be happy to recommend something. I know what's most famous here." As he spoke, his eyes never left Xiaomei. Truthfully, Xiaomei was mature and beautiful, and as a single woman, she naturally drew male attention. Though Zhong Tian already had a girlfriend, he still found himself attracted to Xiaomei. In fact, Zhong Tian wasn't a decent man at all. He had a reputation for flirting shamelessly. A wealthy second-generation heir, he only worked because he wanted something to pass the time. His relationship with Shen Jie had no serious intention behind it. It was nothing more than casual fun. Ever since meeting Xiaomei, however, he had been captivated by her appearance and charm, and his thoughts had long since drifted away from Shen Jie. Uncomfortable under Zhong Tian's gaze, Xiaomei lowered her head and said quietly, "It's fine. I can manage on my own." Zhong Tian insisted, "Come on, don't be stubborn. French is such a niche language. You and your friend couldn't possibly understand it. Let me help." Before he could finish, Feng Shuo closed his menu, called the waiter over, and swiftly ordered every dish the chef had recommended, clearly and confidently, one after another. As Feng Shuo placed the order, both Zhong Tian and Shen Jie froze in stunned silence. They had never expected that Feng Shuo could actually read the menu. Moreover, while ordering, he even remembered to inform the server about his own and Guogua's taste preferences. Anyone who hadn't frequently eaten French cuisine would never pay attention to such subtle details. Could it be that Feng Shuo had actually dined on French food before? Otherwise, how could he be so knowledgeable? Shen Jie had been planning to mock Xiaomei thoroughly next, ideally humiliating her friend as well. Only then would she feel truly satisfied. She had long resented Zhong Tian constantly eyeing Xiaomei, so whenever she got a chance, she'd make sure Xiaomei lost face. After finishing his order, Feng Shuo handed the menu back to the waiter. Then he turned to Xiaomei and said, "Sorry, you looked so hesitant, so I went ahead and ordered for you." Xiaomei quickly shook her head. No, it's fine. Whatever you decided is perfect." She felt genuinely surprised and delighted. She'd thought this outing would embarrass Feng Shuo, but instead, he had effortlessly read the French menu. Zhong Tian had hoped to show off in front of the beautiful woman, only to have Feng Shuo steal his spotlight. A flicker of displeasure rose within him, and he began harboring resentment toward Feng Shuo. He believed Feng Shuo had deliberately upstaged him, trying to impress Xiaomei. So he started plotting ways to crush Feng Shuo's pride and reclaim his moment in the limelight. After placing his order, Zhong Tian smiled at Xiaomei and said, "French Western dining emphasizes atmosphere and ambience above all. That's why I always enjoy having music while eating. As for music, this restaurant specially hires performers. They haven't started yet at this hour, but they will soon. Just about 10 minutes from now, someone will begin playing live." Xiaomei hadn't expected the restaurant to feature live musical performances. A quiet sense of satisfaction stirred inside her. She realized by sheer luck, she'd actually picked the perfect place. Aside from the high prices, everything else was excellent, giving the whole experience a sophisticated feel. Just as they were talking, the waiter arrived with a small cart and began serving the dishes. Western meals were nothing like Chinese banquets, where all the dishes came out at once, filling the table completely. Western courses were divided into appetizers, main courses, and desserts, served strictly in sequence. Thus, what the waiter brought out were only a few slices of bread and some salad. Chapter 132. Too easy. Guogua had never eaten Western food before and didn't understand any of it. Seeing only bread and salad in front of her, she couldn't help pouting and saying, "Is this all there is? Western food isn't delicious at all." Feng Shuo smiled, about to explain, when Zhong Tian sitting across from them burst out laughing. "You don't even know this much? You're all such country bumpkins." Shun Jia also mocked with a sneer. "This is high-class Western dining. You think it's some roadside stall where everything gets thrown on your table at once? Western meals are about mood and atmosphere. Coming here without knowing anything. How embarrassing." Although Guogua was just a child, she still sensed the hostility behind Zhong Tian and Shun Jia's words. She turned to Feng Shuo, asking softly, "Dad, did I say something wrong?" Feng Shuo gently stroked her head. "No, you didn't make any mistake. Everyone starts from not knowing to knowing. No one is born understanding everything. Everyone has their first time. I'm sure many people have made silly mistakes when they came here for the first time too." Though he spoke directly to Guogua, it was clearly aimed at Zhong Tian and Shun Jia. It was perfectly normal for Guogua not to know these things during her first experience with Western cuisine. Yet Zhong Tian and Shun Jia acted as if they'd caught them red-handed, using the opportunity to mock and belittle. Feng Shuo didn't believe that either of them had known everything on their first visit. They must have done awkward things too, surely. But upon hearing Feng Shuo's words, Zhong Tian and Shun Jia showed no sign of regret or self-awareness. Especially Zhong Tian. He completely ignored what Feng Shuo said, instead shooting him a look full of contempt. If you want to show off in front of a beautiful woman, the first thing to do is knock down the man beside her. To elevate yourself, you must put others down. That was exactly Zhong Tian's intention. "Guogua, this is the appetizer," Feng Shuo continued, calmly ignoring the other two's attitude. "Eat a little now to line your stomach so your digestion won't be shocked when the main course arrives. But remember, don't eat too much during the starter course, otherwise you won't have an appetite later." Guogua was smart and quickly understood. Wanting to try the salad first, she picked up her fork. But naturally, being her first time using cutlery, she felt extremely uncomfortable. After struggling for a long time, she still couldn't get a single bite. Eventually, she could only turn to Feng Shuo with pleading eyes. This act drew more ridicule from Zhong Tian and Shun Jia, who stared at her as if watching a peasant arriving in the big city, laughing at her ignorance. Still, Feng Shuo ignored them completely, patiently demonstrating to Guogua how to properly use knife and fork. After practicing several times under his guidance, Guogua quickly got the hang of it. She was clever and highly capable with her hands. After a few attempts, she already wielded the utensils skillfully. Once she mastered the technique, she smiled and said, "Oh, it's actually so simple. Much easier than chopsticks." Feng Shuo nodded. "Exactly. People in the East are dexterous because we use chopsticks. And the reason why people in our country tend to be smarter than those in the West is also due to chopstick usage. While knives and forks may seem more convenient than chopsticks, they're less effective in stimulating brain development. Think about China's 4 great inventions. This kind of intellectual achievement comes precisely because we've trained our brains through chopstick use from generation to generation." These concepts were somewhat abstract for Guogua. She blinked rapidly, her face showing utter bewilderment. But beside them, Xiaomei gazed at Feng Shuo with admiration. These ideas were completely new to her. She'd never heard anything like this before. In truth, these were established facts. Scientists had already researched the subject of human brain development, discovering that people with greater finger dexterity usually possess higher intelligence than average. Westerners, having used knives and forks for generations, had developed their brains far less effectively than Easterners who used chopsticks. That was precisely why Eastern people tended to display greater wisdom compared to Westerners. In this era, when the internet was not yet developed, channels for acquiring knowledge were limited. Unlike decades later when information became widely accessible online, few people knew about such academic findings. In his previous life, Feng Shuo had learned all this through the internet. Now carrying that preserved memory into this life, he appeared exceptionally knowledgeable in others' eyes, knowing things most people didn't. Seeing the way Xiaomei looked at Feng Shuo, Zhong Tian felt a burning hatred gnawing inside. He silently vowed to crush Feng Shuo thoroughly and impress Xiaomei with his own brilliance. At that very moment, a young woman in a flowing white dress slowly entered the restaurant. Her long hair fell over her shoulders, and her elegant demeanor reminded one of a lotus blooming pristine from muddy waters. Carrying a violin case taller than herself, she walked gracefully toward the center of the dining area. Then she opened the case and took out a cello. She set up the instrument, sat down, and began to play. It was Ave Maria. The cello's deep and melodious tones touched the heart of every guest. There was no denying that this young woman's playing technique was truly exceptional. Westerners enjoyed listening to classical music while dining, as music could stimulate the appetite and aid digestion. Of course, not everyone understood or appreciated such music. Guogua and Xiaomei simply found it pleasant to listen to, but couldn't articulate anything meaningful about it. Zhong Tian, however, listened intently, his face showing utter enjoyment. As he listened, he tapped along with the rhythm, seemingly very familiar with the piece. When the performance ended, the guests in the restaurant applauded warmly. The young woman stood and bowed gracefully to all present, expressing her gratitude. Immediately, Zhong Tian began showing off to everyone. That piece is called Ave Maria. Originally a church hymn, it has been adapted many times before evolving into the version we just heard. I've listened to countless musical performances, and among them, this young lady's cello skills are undoubtedly the best. This piece is quite difficult. Only a professional-level cellist can produce that ethereal feeling. Her technique is indeed superb, but she still has quite a gap from being a true master. It's a pity for such a beautiful composition. What a shame. As he spoke, he kept glancing toward Xiaomei. Seeing that her attention had indeed turned to him, he grew even more pleased with himself. Xinjie looked at Zhong Tian with admiration. Wow, you actually understand cello? Zhong Tian said proudly. I've studied various Western instruments since childhood. Piano, violin, saxophone, cello. I'm proficient in them all. I'm not boasting, but if I were up there, I'd definitely outperform her. The moment he finished speaking, Feng Shuo calmly smiled and said, in my opinion, the lady's performance was flawless. The reason you feel it lacked that ethereal quality is simply because there was no piano accompaniment. Zhong Tian rolled his eyes. What do you know? Stop pretending to be an expert when you're clearly a layman. Piano accompaniment only plays a minor role. It can't possibly change the overall effect. Chapter 133 also knows music. Feng Shuo shook his head. Although the accompaniment isn't prominent, it can add the finishing touch. If we add Bach's prelude in C major, the effect would be completely different. Zhong Tian rolled his eyes. By that logic, you're saying you also understand music? Feng Shuo smiled slightly. I wouldn't dare claim to know much, just a little knowledge. Zhong Tian sneered. So you're admitting you're nothing more than half-baked. People should have some self-awareness. I despise those who pretend to be experts when they barely know anything. Xinjie glanced disdainfully at Feng Shuo, then shot a mocking look at Xiaomei. Covering her mouth with a light laugh, she said, Xiaomei, your friend here is really something. Knows nothing, yet pretends to be an expert right in front of Zhong Tian. Real ability shown with humility, that's talent. Pretending to be great without any skill, that's just making a fool of yourself and losing face. At this, Xiaomei's expression darkened. She clearly understood that Xinjie was openly ridiculing Feng Shuo. It was she who had invited Feng Shuo to dinner today. She couldn't let him be mocked because of her. It's just a casual discussion, Xiaomei said sternly. There's no need for such remarks. Zhong Tian, if you're really so good, why don't you go up there and play something? This comment landed perfectly with Zhong Tian. Even without her prompting, he had already planned to show off his skills. He truly had learned Western instruments since childhood. That part was not a lie. And now, he eagerly wanted to impress Xiaomei. It would also show her he was a refined, cultured man, while Feng Shuo beside him was nothing but a frog at the bottom of a well. So he nodded. Sure, if you don't mind, I'll embarrass myself a bit. After speaking, Zhong Tian called over a waiter and whispered a few words. The waiter nodded, then walked toward the young woman. The young woman was about to begin her second piece when she heard the waiter's message. She put down her cello, glanced toward Zhong Tian, stood up, and vacated the seat. The waiter returned and respectfully said, Mr. Zhong, please take the stage for your performance. Zhong Tian rose, straightened his suit, held his head high, and strode onto the platform. He bowed slightly to the young woman in gratitude, then sat down without hesitation. Then he picked up the bow and began playing, performing the same piece as before, Ave Maria. Not that he didn't want to play something else. He simply knew only this one piece. And what luck! The young woman had happened to play Ave Maria earlier. This worked perfectly for Zhong Tian, giving him the confidence to boast so boldly. To be fair, Zhong Tian did possess some skill with the cello. It seemed he'd studied and practiced before, and was quite familiar with the piece. Still, while laymen might not notice, Feng Shuo could tell immediately. Zhong Tian's technique was clearly inferior to that of the young woman who had played earlier. As she listened, Xinjie wore an expression of deep admiration, occasionally glancing over at Feng Shuo with contempt. Though she said nothing, her attitude was crystal clear. She wanted everyone to know Zhong Tian was the true talent, while Feng Shuo was nothing but a windbag with no real abilities. When the piece ended, warm applause filled the room. Zhong Tian stood, bowed politely to the audience, then returned to his seat with chest puffed out proudly. Nearly all guests turned their eyes to him, filling him with a surge of pride. The applause had nearly made his head spin. Xinjie immediately wrapped her arm around Zhong Tian's and cooed. Zhong Tian, you were amazing. I never knew you played cello so beautifully. I'm totally in love with you. Zhong Tian laughed heartily. Oh, just average, world third best. Just a small demonstration, nothing special. He spoke modestly, but his demeanor showed not a trace of humility. Just as Zhong Tian basked in triumph, Feng Shuo calmly remarked, you hit a wrong note in the second measure of the third section just now. The moment the words left his mouth, Zhong Tian's smile froze on his face. Xinjie scowled, snapping angrily. What nonsense are you spouting? You're a complete outsider, don't know a thing, yet still pretending to be superior. Do you think throwing out random comments like this makes you look smart? It only makes you more ridiculous. Zhong Tian snapped lowly. Xinjie, shut up. Xinjie froze, staring at him in confusion. Zhong Tian clenched his teeth, glaring at Feng Shuo. You actually noticed that? Though ordinary listeners wouldn't notice, Zhong Tian knew his own performance best. Indeed, because he hadn't practiced for a while, he had accidentally played one wrong note in the middle. But even if that note was off, it shouldn't have been easily detected. After all, a single note lasted only a fraction of a second. Unless there was a professional level master here, no one should have been able to catch it. Xin Jie froze when she heard Zhong Tian's words. Could it be? Feng Shuo had actually gotten it right? Zhong Tian really had played a wrong note? Xiaomei covered her mouth, staring at Feng Shuo in disbelief. She never imagined he would actually understand music too. And just now, she hadn't noticed anything at all, yet Feng Shuo could immediately tell that Zhong Tian had played a note incorrectly. When did he learn music? Why had Lin Feng never mentioned this before? Feng Shuo said calmly. Although you made a mistake on one note, for someone at your amateur level, it's still quite decent. But compared to that young lady just now, there's still a significant gap. She's truly professional, you can't compare. Feng Shuo's words instantly enraged Zhong Tian. He had originally planned to show off in front of Xiaomei and earn her admiration. But unexpectedly, this Feng Shuo had ruined his perfect scheme. In furious embarrassment, Zhong Tian coldly said, Mr. Feng seems to understand music as well. Earlier, you said, Ave Maria, loses its effect without accompaniment. Then why don't you demonstrate it for us here on the spot? Show us exactly what difference accompaniment makes. Feng Shuo shrugged. Unfortunately, there's no piano here. Zhong Tian revealed a sly smile. Mr. Feng might not know, but this restaurant actually owns a piano. It's just that at this moment, it's been moved away. No problem, I can have the waiters bring it out. With that, Zhong Tian stood up, walked over to a waiter, and whispered a few words. Then he pulled out several red banknotes and handed them to the waiter. Seeing the money, the waiter immediately became extremely respectful, bowed slightly, and hurried off. Not long after, several tall, burly restaurant security guards carried a grand piano into the center of the dining hall. Zhong Tian approached the young woman and asked, Miss, do you play the piano? Chapter 134, Master Level. The young woman was briefly taken aback, then nodded. Yes, I can play. Zhong Tian pointed toward Feng Shuo. My friend would also like to perform Ave Maria. He said he needs piano accompaniment. Could you possibly help him out? The young woman glanced at Feng Shuo and immediately agreed. Sure, no problem. Zhong Tian returned to his seat, smiling as he said to Feng Shuo, all set. That young lady will accompany you on piano while you play Ave Maria. Don't let us down now. Feng Shuo wiped his mouth with a napkin, then gave a confident smile. After whispering something softly to Guogua, he stood up and walked toward the center of the restaurant. Approaching the cello, he examined it for a moment and nodded approvingly. Excellent instrument. This must be handcrafted, genuine Italian-made, too. Judging by its appearance, it's quite old, isn't it? After speaking, he noticed a flicker of astonishment in the young woman's eyes. Sir, do you know much about cellos? Just a little surface-level knowledge, Feng Shuo replied casually before sitting down. The young woman bit her lip, pondered for a moment, then asked, Then, sir, could you perhaps tell me the origins of this cello? Ah, so she wanted to test him. Feng Shuo turned his gaze fully toward her. Earlier, from a distance, he had only seen her silhouette. But even then, her delicate beauty was evident. Now, sitting close to her, he could clearly see her face. She had an oval-shaped face, fine eyebrows, bright eyes, and a high nose. Her long hair flowed like a waterfall over her shoulders. Her skin was fair, and dressed in a white gown, she resembled a blooming lily, pure and sweet. She looked around 18 or 19, probably still a student. If he had to guess, likely from a music conservatory. Musicians were always interesting. They tended to fall into two extremes, either extremely wealthy or barely making ends meet. Since she was playing here at the restaurant to earn money, she most likely belonged to the latter group. Feng Shuo quickly shifted his gaze back to the cello. After examining it further, he gently lifted it with his hands. After a brief pause, he nodded. If I'm not mistaken, this cello should be a relic of Jacqueline Dupree. The young woman's eyes widened, staring at him in disbelief. How did you know? Feng Shuo smiled slightly. There's a large letter J engraved on the body, probably the first initial of Jacqueline. Also, the instrument is relatively light, more suitable for a female player. Judging by its age, it appears to date back to the late 1980s or early 1990s. Putting these clues together, I concluded it might have been Jacqueline Dupree's cello. After hearing this, the astonishment in the young woman's eyes faded, replaced instead with deep admiration. She bowed deeply and said, May I ask your name, sir? I've never met someone who understands instruments like you. I'd really like to get to know you. Feng Shuo shrugged. I merely scratched the surface. I wouldn't say I truly understand anything. And my earlier guess? Pure speculation, nothing concrete. Just luck. Clearly, he was declining her offer to exchange names. They were strangers meeting by chance. What purpose would knowing each other's names serve? After parting ways today, they might never see each other again. So what good would a name do? The young woman understood his meaning, but a trace of disappointment flashed in her eyes. She said nothing more, turned quietly, walked to the piano, and sat down. Then, with a glance, she signaled Feng Shuo to begin. He nodded, and the two started to play together. The young woman played the cello beautifully, and her piano skills were just as impressive. After a clear, pristine prelude, Feng Shuo began performing the cello version of Ave Maria. As the saying went, a master reveals himself in one move. From the very first note he played, the young woman stared at him in shock. In both technique and musicality, Feng Shuo's performance was flawless. This wasn't just excellent, it was master level. Even professors at music conservatories rarely reached such a standard. Feng Shuo's cello playing could easily fill concert halls abroad, major international venues. The melody he produced stirred souls, giving everyone present a rare sense of spiritual clarity unlike anything they'd ever experienced. At that moment, every listener felt themselves elevated. Listening to his music didn't just bring joy, it swept away all their worries, leaving only peace behind. Xiao Mei was deeply moved by Feng Shua's music, her eyes brimming with unhidden affection as she gazed intently at him. The entire audience was captivated by Feng Shua's performance, except for two people, Zhong Tian and Xin Jie. It had to be admitted, Feng Shua played the cello 10,000 times better than Zhong Tian. Compared to Feng Shua, Zhong Tian's skills were as childish as a kindergarten student's. He clenched his teeth, his face filled with resentment. But no matter how buffoon he felt, there was nothing he could do. Feng Shua was simply too far superior. When the piece ended, Feng Shua slowly stood up amid thunderous applause and returned to his seat. The reason he possessed such extraordinary playing technique was because in his previous life, he had met a world-class cello master. They shared a deep connection and an instant rapport, quickly becoming close friends. Under that master's guidance, Feng Shua learned many rare techniques and secrets of performance. Whenever he felt lonely or missed his deceased daughter, he would play the cello to clear his mind. Over time, practice made perfect, and he naturally reached a professional level. After returning to his seat, Guo launched herself at him like a little bear, wrapping her arms around his neck. "Daddy, you were so awesome. That song was so beautiful." Feng Shua smiled. "If you liked it, I'll play specially for you from now on. Besides this one, I know many others. You can tell me whatever you'd like to hear." Xiao Mei gently bit her lower lip. "Feng Shua, I never expected you could do something like this. But why has Lin Feng never mentioned it before?" Feng Shua replied on ly. "Maybe she just doesn't know me very well." Zhong Tian and Xin Jie remained silent, their faces visibly pale with anger. One of them wanted to crush Feng Shua beneath his heel, the other wished for Xiao Mei to be utterly humiliated. Yet neither expected things to take such a dramatic turn, with Feng Shua now stealing the spotlight. What angered Zhong Tian the most was that he himself had orchestrated this entire situation. He had even paid extra to have the restaurant bring out the piano. In the end, he had lost both face and money. Just as Zhong Tian was plotting how he could crush Feng Shua once and for all, a stiff voice speaking Chinese suddenly rang out. "You look familiar from afar. Never thought it actually was you." Chapter 135, Fleeing in Disarray. Everyone turned toward the voice and saw a middle-aged man with blonde hair and blue eyes, smiling as he looked at Feng Shua. The moment Feng Shua saw him, he couldn't help but grin. It was none other than Richard, president of Wei Mei's Asian division. Just as he was about to greet him, Zhong Tian and Xin Jie abruptly stood up. "Mr. Richard. Hello. We never expected to meet you here. What an honor." Richard paused, glanced at Zhong Tian, and wore a puzzled expression. "This gentleman is?" "My name is Zhong Tian. My father is Zhong Tao, the founder of Jiangzhou Zhongsher Food Company. Our company has business ties with yours. He often mentions you," Zhong Tian said, practically fawning. Richard thought for a moment, then shook his head. "We collaborate with so many companies. I can't remember them all. Jiangzhou Zhongsher Food Company. I don't seem to recall it." Zhong Tian had hoped to ingratiate himself and make an impression in front of Richard, but instead, Richard gave him no face at all and flatly said he didn't know him. He was left embarrassed, like a warm face slapped against cold ice, receiving quite the small but stinging rejection. Yet he refused to back down and continued with a forced smile. "Hee, people in high positions like you must have a lot on their minds, so naturally you might not remember. But no worries, we're meeting now. Since fate brought us together, let me treat everyone to dinner." Before he could finish, Richard frowned and interrupted. "I'm sorry, Mr. Zhong. If you don't have anything important to say, please don't interfere while I'm speaking with my friend." Zhong Tian froze, speechless. He realized he'd overstepped. He was just the son of a minor food company, and how could someone like the Asian regional president possibly care about one dinner invitation? His impulsive offer had been entirely inappropriate. To put it bluntly, he simply wasn't qualified to host Richard for a meal. At the same time, it dawned on him. Why would such a big shot come over without reason? Earlier, Richard mentioned having an acquaintance here. His thoughts immediately turned to Feng Shua. Aside from Feng Shua, there was no one else present who could possibly know Richard. Sure enough, Richard turned to Feng Shua with a warm smile. "Mr. Feng Shua, what a coincidence this is. I never expected to run into you here. What you did just now was truly astonishing. I had no idea you had such talent." Although Richard had spoken a few broken sentences in Chinese earlier, he wasn't fluent yet, so he switched back to his native language. "Haha, just a little pastime to pass the time. I hope I didn't embarrass myself in front of you, Mr. Richard," Feng Shua replied fluently in German. Zhong Tian knew a bit of French, but understood nothing of German. So when he heard Feng Shua conversing effortlessly with Richard in German, he was genuinely shocked. Feng Shua could read French, play the cello, and now speak fluent German? Who exactly was he? How could one person master so many things? What startled him most was that Feng Shua actually knew Richard, and judging by their familiarity, they seemed quite close. Having just heard Richard attempt some Chinese, Feng Shua sincerely complimented him. "Mr. Richard, your Chinese seems to have improved greatly." Flattered by the praise, Richard beamed. "Haha, I've put in considerable effort to learn it. As president of the Asia-Pacific region, I should at least understand what my subordinates are talking about every day. In fact, many international deals go smoothly until a simple language barrier causes miscommunication and ultimately ruins the partnership. Such cases were countless." Richard wasn't exaggerating or joking. "Mr. Feng Shua, I truly never expected you to give up your shares in Jiangzhou agricultural products. Honestly, without you, I'm a bit worried about the future of our collaboration," Richard sighed. Feng Shua shook his head. "Don't worry about that. I've already established standardized operating procedures for the company. As long as they follow these protocols strictly, there won't be any issues. There's a common saying in our country. The camp remains firm while soldiers come and go. As long as there is a reliable and scientific system in place, no matter how personnel change, the overall direction of the business remains stable. Richard nodded vigorously in agreement. Well said, extremely well said. Mr. Feng Shua, it's a real shame you already have your own ambitions. Otherwise, I'd definitely try to recruit you to our company. Your philosophy matches mine perfectly. Feng Shua chuckled. Then wouldn't I be stealing General Manager Bai and Manager Zhuang's jobs? Both burst into laughter. Since Richard had come to the restaurant with friends, after a brief exchange, he excused himself and returned to his table. Zheng Tian had completely abandoned any thought of humiliating Feng Shua. Anyone who could chat so casually with Richard and speak fluently with him was clearly no ordinary person. Yes, he was a rich second generation, but his father's company only employed 10 to 20 people, a tiny business compared to a major joint venture like Wei Mei. In comparison, it was practically kindergarten level. Moreover, Wei Mei was now the biggest investor in his father's company. With just one word, Richard could shut them down overnight. He couldn't afford to offend someone like that. Absolutely not. Zheng Tian lost all appetite. Thinking back on his earlier behavior, if Feng Shua mentioned even a few words to Richard, wouldn't he be finished? His father would literally beat him to death. So after barely eating anything, Zheng Tian made an excuse and quickly dragged Shen Jia away in embarrassment. Compared to Zheng Tian, Shen Jia had no idea about the stakes involved. Even if Feng Shua could play the cello and converse fluently with a foreigner, in her eyes, none of that made him superior to her boyfriend Zheng Tian. So when Zheng Tian pulled her out of the restaurant, she looked utterly confused, unsure why they were leaving. She had originally planned to thoroughly humiliate Xiao Mei, but failed to get her way. That frustrated her deeply. Yet she didn't dare oppose Zheng Tian's decision, so she left with a sullen expression. Seeing Zheng Tian and the others gone, Feng Shua finally breathed a sigh of relief. Now he could enjoy his meal in peace. He gestured toward Xiao Mei, indicating she should sit across from him. But Xiao Mei pretended not to notice, staying right beside Feng Shua. Worse, she kept shifting closer to him every now and then, making Feng Shua increasingly uncomfortable. Without any interruptions, the meal proceeded pleasantly. However, when Xiao Mei picked up the bill, her face froze. She had assumed a Western dinner would cost at most a few hundred yuan. But this came close to 2,000, more than half of her monthly salary. Feng Shua noticed her troubled expression and immediately called over a waiter, paying the bill himself. Xiao Mei said apologetically, I promised I'd treat you, yet you ended up paying. I feel terrible about it. It's the end of the month and I... Chapter 136, A Sincere Apology. Feng Shua interrupted her. It's fine. Having a meal together is just a gesture of goodwill. I accept your intention. As for who pays, that doesn't matter. Xiao Mei nodded and said, I'll get another chance to treat you next time. I promise to pick somewhere I can actually afford. Feng Shua replied calmly, there's no need. If you wanted to express gratitude, today was already enough. As for the future, it's unnecessary. Having spoken, he picked up Guogua and prepared to leave. At that moment, the young woman who had earlier played the cello, carrying her heavy instrument case on her back, approached Feng Shua. Her performance duties had ended long ago, yet she deliberately waited until Feng Shua finished his meal before coming over. Sir, the way you played just now was absolutely incredible. That level of artistry has always been what I strive for. My own mentor hasn't reached such heights. So, although I know this might be bold of me, I really wanted to come introduce myself, because I didn't want to live with regret. The young woman bowed deeply as she spoke. Hello, my name is Zhou Qiqin. May I ask your honorable name? When a young girl put things so sincerely, refusing would have seemed cold-hearted. Besides, her eyes were pure and her attitude genuinely respectful. He simply couldn't find a reason to turn her down. So he answered seriously, my name is Feng Shua. Feng as in upright, Shua as in fruitful harvest. Zhou Qiqin broke into a sweet smile. Mr. Feng, I'm truly honored to meet you. If it's convenient, could we exchange contact information? Please don't misunderstand. I don't mean anything else by it. We have a circle of musicians who occasionally gather to study and discuss music. Your skill is exceptional, and if possible, I'd love to invite you sometime to offer us some guidance. She quickly added, of course, we won't expect you to come for free. We'll pay appropriate compensation. Standard rates for guest lecturers. Would that be acceptable? Feng Shua liked Zhou Qiqin's impression overall, and considering the people around her were likely all music students, a circle like this was typically difficult for outsiders to enter. This was indeed a great opportunity to expand his network. As a businessman, one should never miss chances like these. So he nodded agreeably. All right, no problem. They exchanged phone numbers and added each other on WeChat. Zhou Qiqin bowed again. Great, then it's settled. I won't disturb you further. Goodbye, Mr. Feng. With that, she turned and left. Guogua watched Zhou Qiqin's retreating figure and remarked, that big sister must be super strong. The instrument she carried looks so heavy. Her innocent comment made Feng Shua laugh. He gently patted Guogua's head. Guogua, do you want to grow up and carry a big instrument case like her, performing for others? Guogua shook her head. No, that would be boring. Feng Shua asked. Then what do you want to be when you grow up? Guogua thought seriously for a moment. I want to be a boss. Feng Shua was momentarily stunned, but then burst out laughing. Ambitious. Truly worthy of my genes. He bid Xiao Mei farewell and started heading home. Upon arriving at the residential compound, Feng Shua parked the car and was about to go upstairs with Guogua when he noticed Long Wanqing pacing back and forth in front of the building. She had tried several times to approach the entrance, but for some reason, always stepped back again. Feng Shua took Guogua's hand and walked over. Were you waiting for us? Long Wanqing startled, jumping back several steps like a frightened bird, staring at Feng Shuo in panic. But quickly, she regained her usual cool demeanor and said indifferently, "Who said I was waiting for you? I just happened to pass by." Feng Shuo smiled, choosing not to call her out. Long Wanqing looked at Guogua. "You came back early. What did that Xiao Annie treat you to?" Guogua immediately answered, "Steak." Long Wanqing frowned. "She treated you to steak? Where did you eat?" Guogua thought for a moment. "I don't know the name. Just some restaurant. Not many people, and you're not allowed to speak loudly." "Oh right. There was also a big sister playing the cello." Long Wanqing was slightly surprised, turning to Feng Shuo. "Well, your friend Ms. Xiao seems quite well off, taking you to such an upscale Western restaurant." Feng Shuo shrugged. Actually, she didn't even realize how expensive it was. She just happened to choose it by accident. Long Wanqing gave no reaction, merely uttering a soft, "Oh," then turned and began walking away. Seeing her leave, Feng Shuo called after her. "Now that you're here, why not come in and sit for a while?" Long Wanqing huffed coldly. "Forget it. We're just ordinary friends. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to barge into your home." Feng Shuo let out a helpless sigh. "Last time, I said some things that were a bit excessive. I apologize to you. It was also my fault for secretly selling the shares of Jiangzhou Agricultural Products Company without telling you. I sincerely say this to you. I'm sorry." Long Wanqing stopped walking, unable to suppress a smile flickering across her face. Her smile was truly breathtaking, so beautiful that no man could possibly resist such a gentle, fleeting grin. Unfortunately, she had her back turned to Feng Shuo, so this enchanting smile went unseen by anyone. The smile vanished as quickly as it appeared. She swiftly composed her expression, then slowly turned around and walked up to Feng Shuo, speaking coldly. "Now that you realize you were wrong, try making up for it." Feng Shuo asked, "How do you want me to make it up? For your next project, I must be involved too." Long Wanqing declared without hesitation. Feng Shuo was taken aback. "How do you know I have another project coming up?" Long Wanqing shrugged. "You, Hu Yuran, and Qian Lai. You three went so far as to use a bitter meat strategy just to unload all your shares. That clearly means you've already figured out your next move. If you hadn't planned what comes next before pulling out of Jiangzhou Agricultural Products Company, not even a ghost would believe it. Besides, knowing your personality, you'd never allow yourself to stay idle. So come on, tell me, what exactly are you planning to do?" Feng Shuo sighed. He felt completely transparent to Long Wanqing. Whatever he did, she seemed able to see right through it. But since she'd already guessed the truth, there was no point in hiding anything. So he confessed obediently. "Next, I'm going to develop an agricultural base." Long Wanqing's eyes widened. "Are you serious?" Feng Shuo nodded. "When it comes to business, I never joke. I've already registered the company, and the land for the project has been approved. Once funding is in place, I can start moving forward." Long Wanqing remained silent for a long while. Although she knew Feng Shuo always had unusual and bold ideas, she never expected him to venture into agriculture. After all, in today's era, people from rural areas were desperately trying to leave the countryside and find work in cities. Very few actually wanted to engage in farming. Yet Feng Shuo was going against the tide. He actually intended to build an agricultural base. Chapter 137, A Thorny Problem. It took Long Wanqing a while to snap back to reality. She frowned and said, "Based on my judgment, the real estate market is about to experience explosive growth. Shouldn't you be putting all your capital into property right now?" When Feng Shuo heard this, he couldn't help but feel secretly astonished. He knew the future trajectory of real estate because of his memories from his past life. But Long Wanqing had managed to predict this trend purely through her own insight. Sometimes, Feng Shuo truly admired her. She was indeed a prodigy in business, with remarkably accurate foresight and instinct for market trends. In this regard, she was definitely superior to her father, Long Tianhai. Given time, she would surely surpass him. Feng Shuo cleared his throat. "Your judgment isn't wrong. The real estate sector will indeed develop. But there's an old saying. Extreme situations reverse themselves. Although property will boom in the future, it will only last temporarily. Besides, housing is a basic necessity. If prices are allowed to skyrocket unchecked, it would inevitably disrupt the national economy and negatively impact people's livelihoods. Restrictive policies will undoubtedly emerge sooner or later. In my estimation, the so-called boom you mentioned will last no more than 5 or 6 years before rapidly cooling down. After that, the market will enter a phase of slow, steady growth, which could last anywhere from 10 to 20 years. That said, it doesn't mean real estate won't still be viable going forward. I'm speaking broadly here. There are many factors influencing prices. Jiangzhou itself will undergo planning and development in the coming years. If a particular area is included in official plans, land values will rise, driving up housing prices along with them. Whoever seizes such opportunities can still profit from real estate. The problem is, these kinds of chances will become increasingly rare, and even when they do arise, you might not always be able to capitalize on them. So yes, using real estate to accumulate funds is fine, but treating it as a long-term business venture? I'd advise against it. Long Wanqing listened quietly without interrupting. Outwardly, she showed no reaction, but inwardly she was stunned. Because everything Feng Shuo said was exactly right. These considerations had never occurred to her before. Only after hearing him explain did she finally understand. She looked at Feng Shuo once again with astonishment. What kind of mind does this guy have? How can he make such precise predictions about the future? Until now, Long Wanqing had thought she was the only one capable of such foresight. But clearly, Feng Shuo surpassed her by far. What she didn't know was that, in terms of pure ability, Feng Shuo and Long Wanqing were fairly evenly matched. His advantage lay solely in the fact that he carried knowledge from his previous life. He already knew how things would unfold. After a moment of silence, Long Wanqing finally spoke slowly. You make a lot of sense. I did overlook policy-related aspects. In that case, I want to get involved in your agricultural base project too. Before Fang Shuo could respond, she pointed a finger at him. And this time, no more sneaking around behind my back. If I find out you're hiding something from me, we're done. Permanently. With that, she scooped up Guogua and walked toward the building. After taking a few steps, she suddenly turned around and called back. What are you standing there for? Come open the door. Fang Shuo smiled wryly. This is my home. Long Wanqing rolled her eyes. You offended me earlier, so cooking me dinner is the least you can do. And besides, I've been too busy lately to spend time with Guogua. No arguing. Hurry up and open the door. Sighing, Fang Shuo walked over and unlocked the door. Once inside, Long Wanqing plopped down on the sofa with Guogua, playing and laughing together until they got tired, then turning on the TV to watch cartoons. Fang Shuo tied on an apron and headed into the kitchen to start preparing. Though dinner was still hours away, some ingredients needed early preparation. Just as he was busy chopping vegetables, his phone rang. He picked it up and saw it was Hu Yuren calling. Answering, he said, Old Hu, what's up? Actually, I've got something to tell you too. Hu Yuren paused, surprised. What could you possibly need to tell me? Just don't make it bad news. I can't handle that right now. Hearing this, Fang Shuo's heart tightened. Did something go wrong? He asked quickly, has something happened? Is there trouble with our land approval? Not exactly, Hu Yuren replied. The approval came through fine. But what we're facing now, that's the real thorny issue. What is it? You know, setting up an agricultural base isn't simple. Besides securing the land, we also need approvals from relevant departments like the Agriculture Bureau and the Grain Bureau. The Agriculture Bureau side should be manageable. Lao Qian has connections and will take care of it. But the Grain Bureau. Hu Yuren's voice sounded deeply troubled. I used to have a solid connection at the Grain Bureau, one that I thought was reliable. So I assumed there wouldn't be any issues. But only today did I find out that my contact is gone. They say he was promoted and transferred to a provincial post. His position has been filled by someone else. I tried to establish a new connection, but the guy is completely unapproachable. No matter how hard I pleaded or how nicely I spoke, he wouldn't give me a clear answer. Fang Shuo thought for a moment. Could it be the classic new official starts with 3 bold moves? Maybe wait a while and try approaching him again later? After all, our base project isn't in urgent need of immediate action. Hu Yuren gave a bitter smile. You might not understand the situation. Back when I worked as a distributor, I had a sworn enemy, someone who's always clashed with me. He's always trying to compete with me, always trying to outdo me. We've even come to blows over supply sources and distribution channels. And the man who just took over at the bureau happens to be this rival's cousin. What do you think about that? Oh, hearing this, Fang Shuo fell silent. This really was a tricky situation. As the saying goes, officials hold power in their words. Right or wrong depends entirely on what they say. If they say you can proceed, you can. If they say no, then nothing moves forward. Now, the key approval from the Grain Bureau was in the hands of his old enemy's relative. It seemed obvious that, short of a miracle, the approval would never go through. This was indeed problematic. It looked like they'd need a smart strategy to get around this obstacle. Fang Shuo comforted him. Old Hu, they say there's no challenge too great for a determined heart. There are always more solutions than difficulties. Don't lose hope over a minor setback. Here's what we'll do. On Monday, I'll go with you to the Grain Bureau. I'll meet with this person myself and see if there's any room for negotiation. When Hu Yuren heard Fang Shuo plan to go personally, he immediately felt much more at ease. By now, he viewed Fang Shuo almost as a godsend, and his confidence surged. He quickly nodded. All right then, we meet on Monday. As for the issue with the Grain Bureau, Fang Shuo didn't take it too seriously. In his eyes, it was merely a small bump in the road. Hu Yuren, perhaps because he'd been following Fang Shuo for so long and experienced nothing but smooth progress, tended to panic at the first sign of difficulty. Chapter 138, Deliberate Obstruction. On Monday morning, after dropping Guogua off at school, Fang Shuo met up with Hu Yuren. Together, they went to the project management office of the Grain Bureau and found the clerk responsible for signing approvals. His name was Pei Jun, a middle-aged man with a fat face and bulging eyes. Wearing black-rimmed glasses, he appeared refined on the surface, but in his gaze, Fang Shuo detected a hint of cruelty. Having dealt with countless people, Fang Shuo instantly knew Pei Jun would not be easy to handle. This was a classic smiling dagger type, appearing kind and gentle with his plump figure, yet inwardly scheming and malicious. Hu Yuren whispered to Fang Shuo, that's him. Without his signature, our project approval won't go through. I've approached him before, but he refused to sign for all sorts of reasons. Fang Shuo nodded, then stepped forward with a broad smile. Mr. Pei, hello. I'm Fang Shuo, the legal representative of Jiangzhou Zhongding Development Company, Limited. As he spoke, he took out a business card from his pocket and handed it over. Now that the company was established, business cards were essential. Exchanging cards was standard etiquette in business. The purpose of a business card was to help others remember you. Two strangers merely introducing themselves verbally could easily forget each other. But with a business card, one could always recall the person's role and position anytime. Offering your own card proactively was a form of self-introduction and basic courtesy. Yet Pei Jun didn't even glance at it. He looked up at Fang Shuo and frowned. Jiangzhou what company? Jiangzhou Zhongding Development Company, Limited. Fang Shuo repeated. Jiangzhou, something development company? Such a long name. It's too hard to remember. Pei Jun showed clear irritation. Fang Shuo knew immediately this was deliberate. The company name consisted of only 10 characters and had been stated twice. Anyone, even someone mentally impaired, should have remembered it. Yet Pei Jun claimed it was too long and difficult to memorize. Moreover, regardless of anything else, as a matter of basic courtesy, one should never criticize another person's name or their company's title. It was the most fundamental respect. But Pei Jun wore an impatient look and complained about the length of Feng Shua's company name. Clearly, in his eyes, Feng Shua and his team meant nothing. Beside him, Hu Yurin was already slightly angered. Pei Jun's attitude was obviously targeted. They were being singled out. Feng Shua signaled Hu Yurin to stay calm, then continued with a friendly smile. Actually, our company is easy to remember. You just need to remember the two characters, Zhongding. Pei Jun had only wanted to intimidate them at the outset and didn't dwell further on the issue. Leaning back in his chair, he said coldly, "What do you want from me?" Our company plans to build an agricultural base in a small village on the outskirts of Jiangzhou. The project requires approval and a signature from the Grain Bureau. So we'd like to trouble Mr. Pei to review it for us, Feng Shua explained. "Oh, I already told your company's representative when he came last time. His materials were incomplete. He must complete everything before returning," Pei Jun replied. "In that case, which materials are missing? Please let us know so we can go back and supplement them," Feng Shua said with a smile. Pei Jun's face darkened. "You're asking me what's missing? Is it you who wants to build this agricultural base or me? You haven't figured anything out, yet you come rushing here. Do you think I have nothing else to do?" At this, Feng Shua understood completely. Clearly, Pei Jun was deliberately making things difficult. The application was missing documents, but Pei Jun wouldn't specify what. That meant no matter how many materials Feng Shua brought, Pei Jun could always reject them for incompleteness. No wonder Hu Yurin sounded so depressed during yesterday's phone call. Apparently, he'd already been turned away once. Unfazed, Feng Shua retrieved a folder from his briefcase and handed it over. "Mr. Pei, these are the prepared materials. I've compiled them according to regulations. I believe nothing should be missing. I've already consulted your Grain Bureau in advance, and they confirmed that these are all the required documents, nothing more. So I kindly ask for your help in reviewing them." Pei Jun glanced at Feng Shua, then lazily picked up the folder, flipped through it casually twice, and tossed it back. "Not acceptable. Materials are missing. Go back, complete them, then come again," Feng Shua asked. "I believe everything is complete. Could it be that you overlooked something? Please take a closer look. I've already confirmed. There shouldn't be anything missing." Pei Jun's face turned grim. "Who's in charge here, you or me? I've clearly told you. Materials are missing. Complete them first, then come back. Then could you please tell me, Mr. Pei, exactly what materials are missing?" Feng Shua asked patiently. "Sorry, this is an approval office, not a consultation desk. If you don't know, go figure it out and come back," Pei Jun replied curtly. Just as Feng Shua was about to speak again, Hu Yurin beside him finally snapped. Pointing at Pei Jun, he shouted angrily, "I know you're deliberately making things difficult for us. Is this something Nyo Debeo told you to do? If he has a problem, let him come after me directly. Don't play dirty tricks like this." Pei Jun slammed the table, stood up, and roared. "What do you think this place is? How dare you yell and cause a scene? And you're slandering me with baseless accusations. I can sue you for defamation in court. Now both of you get out immediately. Otherwise, I'll call the police and have you arrested. And with attitudes like yours, you'll never get anything approved here. Not in this lifetime." Hu Yurin was furious beyond reason. If not for Feng Shua holding him back, he would have rushed forward and started fighting. Feng Shua feared that if Hu Yurin actually lost control, the situation would spiral out of hand. So he forcibly dragged him out of the project management office. In the hallway, Hu Yurin was still seething with anger. Clenching his fists, he spat bitterly. "Feng brother, if you hadn't stopped me just now, I would have beaten that bastard to death." Hu Yurin had always been gentle and generous by nature. For him to be driven to such rage showed just how outrageous Pei Jun's behavior had been. Truthfully, Feng Shua was angry too. Yet he knew precisely that the more unreasonable the other side became, the calmer he needed to remain. Impulsiveness would only make everything worse. Right now, the other party was acting completely unreasonably. Once this matter escalated, public sympathy and justice would be on their side. But if they resorted to violence, the entire situation would change. No matter how justified they were, they'd instantly become the wrongdoers. So when the time called for endurance, endurance was necessary. That said, Feng Shua wasn't a saint. After being treated so disrespectfully by Pei Jun, he had no intention of letting this slide. As the saying went, a gentleman bides his time 10 years for revenge. This man was merely a petty clerk. There would be plenty of chances for retribution. It took Feng Shua considerable effort to calm Hu Yurin down. Just as they were about to leave, they unexpectedly ran into someone face to face. Chapter 139, Personal Approval. "Mr. Feng, it really is you." The man seemed to recognize Feng Shua and appeared quite excited. Feng Shua looked up and couldn't help but smile. "Director Wang, what a coincidence." It turned out that the man was none other than Wang Yuanhang, who had previously interacted with Feng Shua. If he remembered correctly, this man should have been the head of the market management division at the Grain Bureau. Back then, at the Bullfrog Hot Pot restaurant, he had personally come over to thank Feng Shua for helping solve the inventory problem at the farmer's market. After that, the two had lost contact. Hu Yurin bowed slightly toward Wang Yuanhang, then quietly reminded Feng Shua, "He's Director Wang now." Apparently, there had recently been personnel changes at the Grain Bureau, with many officials promoted to provincial positions. Before his own promotion, the previous director of the Grain Bureau had specifically designated Wang Yuanhang as his successor. Therefore, Wang was no longer merely the head of the market management division. He was now the top official of the entire grain bureau. Sorry, I didn't know. Hello, Director Wang. Fang Shua quickly corrected himself. Wang Yuanhang, visibly moved, stepped forward and placed both hands on Fang Shua's shoulders. Mr. Fang, ever since we parted ways at the hospital, I've been wanting to properly thank you. But my official duties have kept me so busy, I never found the time. Meeting you today must be fate. Come, this time I absolutely must treat you to a meal. You saved my life. I have to express my gratitude properly. Without giving Fang Shua any chance to refuse, Wang Yuanhang called over his secretary, arranged for a car, and personally escorted Fang Shua and Hu Yuran to a restaurant owned by the Grain Bureau. However, the meal Wang referred to as treating them consisted of only 4 dishes and a soup. Fang Shua understood, being the head of the Grain Bureau, if he were to lead by example in extravagance and waste, dismissal wouldn't be far off. Besides, from what Fang Shua knew, Wang Yuanhang was someone extremely strict with himself, diligent, practical, and enjoyed a good reputation among the common people. Mr. Fang, if not for your warning back then, you and I probably wouldn't be sitting here together like this today. You're my savior. I'll drink this cup to you, bottoms up, as a sign of my deepest thanks. Wang Yuanhang raised his glass and downed the liquor in one gulp. Fang Shua smiled and said, Director Wang, you're too kind. I only said it offhand. If you hadn't listened, there'd have been nothing I could do. So don't thank me. Really, you should thank yourself most of all. Wang Yuanhang set down his glass and asked curiously, Mr. Fang, do you know medicine? How did you know I was ill? Fang Shua shook his head. I don't know medicine, but I do know physiognomy. From your facial features, I could tell something was wrong with your health. Nowadays, Fang Shua could bluff with ease. Whenever something couldn't be explained logically, he simply attributed it to mystical or esoteric knowledge. Wang Yuanhang looked half convinced. Physiognomy? Isn't that a bit unscientific? Fang Shua shook his head again. No, quite the opposite. Physiognomy is actually a rigorous science. However, by today's standards, most of its essence has already been lost. And because many fraudsters have exploited it, the general public now misunderstands it. Though still somewhat skeptical, Wang Yuanhang was an objective man who never rashly judged things he didn't fully understand. He nodded and said, I never expected Mr. Fang to be knowledgeable in such matters. Truly learned and versatile. Then he changed the subject. By the way, after you stopped running the Bullfrog Hot Pot restaurant, what business did you take up next? What brings you to the Grain Bureau today? Fang Shua didn't hide anything and replied, after closing the Hot Pot restaurant, the farmer's market happened to go through restructuring. So, using my capital along with 2 friends, we acquired the shares of the reformed Jiangzhou Agricultural Products Company. Hearing this, Wang Yuanhang was momentarily stunned. So it was you, the person who aggressively bought up shares. I'd heard about this incident before. At the time, I was wondering who had such foresight to snap up all those shares exactly at that moment. Looking at Fang Shua with admiration, he nodded repeatedly. Back then, I already thought you were no ordinary man. Clearing out the long stagnant inventory at the farmer's market, that took real skill. Now it seems you're even more impressive. Many state-owned enterprises failed during restructuring. Anyone daring enough to invest and acquire shares at such a critical time clearly isn't relying on luck. Fang Shua modestly smiled. You flatter me, Director Wang. Then let me ask my second question, Wang Yuanhang continued. Why are you here at the Grain Bureau today? Are you here on official business? Fang Shua didn't conceal it and simply nodded. Yes, I'm here at the Project Management Office for approval procedures. Hearing this, Wang Yuanhang immediately wore an intrigued expression. Your agricultural products company doesn't seem to have any projects requiring approval. Are you planning some new venture again? Fang Shua smiled. I've already sold all my shares in the agricultural products company. Next, I plan to set up an agricultural base, and I've even picked the location. The land use approval from the Land Bureau has gone through, and my partner is already handling the procedures at the Agriculture Bureau. I'm having a bit of trouble with the Project Management Office at the Grain Bureau, so I came here to check things out. Wang Yuanhang looked puzzled. What kind of problem are you having? Fang Shua chuckled wryly. Honestly, I don't know either. Pei Jun, who's in charge of project management, simply says our documents are incomplete. But when I ask him what exactly is missing, he refuses to tell me. Before coming here, I made sure to learn exactly what materials were required, and I've prepared everything completely. Yet Pei Jun still insists something's missing without specifying what. It's really been a headache. Wang Yuanhang frowned deeply. He refused to tell you? That's against regulations. We must maintain the principles of openness, fairness, and justice. Plus, we have a duty to inform applicants. Anything missing must be clearly stated. He reached out toward Fang Shua. By the way, where are your documents? Let me take a look. Fang Shua quickly had Hu Yuran hand over the folder to Wang Yuanhang. Wang carefully flipped through the documents, nodding repeatedly as he read. After finishing, he closed the folder. Your documents are completely comprehensive. Nothing is missing at all. In theory, your project approval should have no issues whatsoever. You're establishing an agricultural base. That's a significant initiative benefiting both the nation and its people. If someone deliberately creates obstacles here, they're hindering the overall development of Jiangzhou City. Wang Yuanhang's gaze gradually turned cold. At best, it's dereliction of duty. At worst, it's obstructing national economic development. Pei Jun from the Project Management Office. Was it? Fine, I'll remember his name. He turned his eyes back to Fang Shua. Mr. Fang, leave these documents with me. I think highly of your project, so I'll personally handle your approval. Within 3 days? No, 2 days at most, your approval will go through. Fang Shua and Hu Yuran exchanged glances, both smiling. Then thank you, Director Wang. Chapter 140, Truly Detestable. Wang Yuanhang was extremely efficient. By the very next day, Fang Shua received notification that the approval had gone through. Upon hearing the news, Hu Yuran was overjoyed. He burst out laughing and said, Brother Fang, we owe this all to you. If it weren't for your connection with Director Wang, there's no way our application would have been approved so quickly. Fang Shua shook his head. No, you're mistaken. Director Wang is a man who strictly separates public duty from personal relationships. He wouldn't bend the rules just because of me. The real reason is that our project is genuinely solid, and all the documentation was complete. Pei Jun simply had no grounds to reject us. Hu Yuran grinned. Well, regardless of how it happened, despite some twists and turns along the way, at least it ended well. Fang Shua said. Now that the approval has come through, could you please go to the Grain Bureau and collect the official document? No problem. Hu Yuran agreed cheerfully and hurried off toward the Grain Bureau. At that moment, in the project management division of Jiangzhou Grain Bureau, Pei Jun was talking with a sallow-faced, beady-eyed man who gave off an unsettlingly gloomy aura, his eyes filled with dark resentment, someone whose presence made others instinctively uncomfortable. This man was none other than Niu Debao, Hu Yuran's sworn enemy. The origin of their feud was rather absurd. Back then, Niu Debao had fallen for a woman who happened to be Hu Yuran's fiancée. Ignoring that fact entirely, Niu launched an obsessive pursuit of her. But the woman felt absolutely nothing for him, and ultimately married Hu Yuran. From that moment on, Niu Debao developed a deep hatred for Hu Yuran, convinced that he had stolen away his beloved. Since then, Niu had targeted Hu at every turn, constantly sabotaging him behind the scenes. Their rivalry started over supply sources and extended to sales channels and customers alike. To undermine and discredit Hu Yuran, Niu Debao even went around slandering his reputation. Fortunately, Hu Yuran was well-liked and had a strong standing in the community, rendering Niu's tactics ineffective. This only intensified Niu Debao's hatred, driving him to despise Hu Yuran with utter venom. Nowadays, although Hu Yuran had moved on to other ventures and no longer engaged in distribution, Niu Debao still refused to let him go. When he heard that Hu was seeking approval from the Grain Bureau, he colluded with his cousin, Pei Jun, plotting to obstruct the process behind the scenes. He had assumed that with Pei Jun on his side, Hu Yuran would never obtain the approval, a thought that brought Niu great satisfaction for a long time. But unexpectedly, everything took a sudden turn. Hu Yuran's application had been approved. Shocked by the news, Niu Debao immediately rushed to the project management division to confront Pei Jun for answers. Pei Jun himself was bewildered. He clearly remembered turning both Hu Yuran and Fang Shua away, and their documents hadn't passed through his hands. So how could the approval have gone through? Through what channel had they managed this? Niu Debao sat in silence, his face dark and stormy. Pei Jun chain-smoked, his expression full of confusion. The two men stared at each other across the office, the atmosphere growing heavy and oppressive. After a long pause, Niu Debao finally spoke. Brother, let's not worry right now about how the approval slipped through. The important thing is, we can't let him get that document. This is our last chance. The approval's still in your hands. Don't you dare loosen your grip. Pei Jun nodded firmly. Don't worry, little brother. I still have that much authority. As long as the document stays with me, that guy will never lay his hands on it in this lifetime. Niu Debao smiled coldly. Then I leave this matter in your hands, brother. Rest assured, your reward won't be short by a single cent. Hearing this, Pei Jun broke into a broad grin. We're family. No need to be so formal. You've put in hard work for me, big brother. This little fee is only fair. I understand that much, Niu Debao declared, thumping his chest confidently. Just as he was speaking, Hu Yuran walked into the office. When he saw Niu Debao, his expression immediately darkened. He said icily, You again? Niu Debao sneered. It's not your private property. If you can come here, why can't I? Hu Yuran snorted. I don't have time to deal with you. I'm here to handle serious business. With that, he turned to Pei Jun and said, Mr. Pei, I'm here to pick up the approval document. Pei Jun casually dug his little finger into his ear. What approval document? Hu Yuran paused, then forced himself to remain patient. The one from our recent application, the approval notice. Pei Jun spread his hands helplessly. Sorry, but I never received your materials, so I've got nothing to give you. Hearing this, Hu Yuran's anger flared instantly. At this point, the man was still trying to obstruct him. The approval had already come through. What right did he have to withhold it? Yet, mindful that things shouldn't escalate, Hu Yuran suppressed his fury and said calmly, Although I didn't hand the materials directly to you, I submitted them to another staff member. Just earlier, I received your official notice confirming the approval and instructing me to come collect the document. Pei Jun's face darkened. Hu Yuran, don't you understand the rules? This is a government office. Everything must follow proper procedure. If everyone acted on their own like you, everything would fall into chaos. If you're so capable that you can get someone else to accept your documents, then go ask that person for the approval notice. Don't come looking for me. Hu Yuran frowned. The approval notice is already in your hands. Even if I found that other person, it wouldn't do me any good. Before, when you refused my materials, I could do nothing. But now that the approval has been granted, what right do you have to withhold it from me? Pei Jun slammed the table, shouting angrily. Hu Yuran, what kind of attitude is this? I'm warning you. Watch your words. If you keep causing trouble like this, I'll have you thrown out onto the street. Hu Yuran finally lost his patience and shouted back. Fine then. Go ahead and try throwing me out. I didn't want to say this earlier, but since you're being so relentless, I'll speak plainly. I submitted the materials directly to Director Wang himself, and he personally approved them. If you refuse to give me the approval document, then I'll go straight to Director Wang and have him settle this matter personally. At these words, Pei Jun froze in shock. He never imagined that Hu Yurin had actually approached the head of the Grain Bureau himself. No wonder he hadn't received the documents. Yet the approval still mysteriously went through. But how was it possible? Director Wang was always so busy. Why would he bother with an ordinary person? And why would he personally handle the approval? As Pei Jun stood puzzled, Neo de Bao sneered coldly. Hu Yurin, stop trying to intimidate us with false authority. Do you think I don't know who you are? If you really knew Director Wang, why have you kept coming to my cousin again and again? If you had such connections, you could have just handed your document straight to Director Wang and been done with it. After all these years, you're still the same old braggart, exaggerating every little thing. No, Director Wang? Have him personally approve your application? Who do you think you're fooling? Hearing this, Pei Jun suddenly felt as if a light had been switched on in his mind. So that was it. The guy was bluffing him all along. He might not know who had accepted the documents, but one thing was certain. Hu Yurin had no connection whatsoever with Director Wang. To actually bring up the top official of the Grain Bureau like that, this kid was truly detestable. Chapter 141, Perform a Play. Pei Jun then picked up the phone on the desk and dialed a number. Security? I've got someone causing trouble here. Please send someone over immediately to throw this person out. A few moments after he hung up, several uniformed security guards rushed into the office. Pei Jun pointed at Hu Yurin. Get this unreasonable fellow out of here. Hu Yurin protested loudly. I'm here on legitimate business. What right do you have to kick me out? Pei Jun sneered. Legitimate business? Who can prove that? I, however, have someone who can testify that you're making a scene and acting unruly. No sooner had he finished speaking than Neo de Bao nodded quickly and said, That's right. He's been yelling and throwing a tantrum, even threatening to cause trouble. Fellow guards, please get him out quickly before he does something extreme. The guards nodded and grabbed Hu Yurin, dragging him toward the door. Hu Yurin was nearly driven mad with anger. He'd never seen such absurdity. Not only had Pei Jun deliberately targeted him and withheld his approval document, but now he was twisting facts and calling security to forcibly eject him. Though he was an honest man by nature, when an honest man truly lost his temper, he could be quite fierce. Unwilling to be thrown out like this, he struggled fiercely, trying to break free from the guard's grasp. But after all, he was just one man. How could he stand against large, burly security officers? After a brief struggle, he was yanked out of the Grain Bureau and shoved onto the street. In the scuffle, Hu Yurin's hair had become disheveled and his clothes torn. A clear footprint marked his shirt. Neo de Bao had taken the chance to kick him just before the guards dragged him out. Never in his life had Hu felt so humiliated and frustrated. He was so enraged he felt like he might spit blood and could only stand in front of the Grain Bureau shouting curses in fury. Yet no matter how loud he shouted, it was useless. Apart from drawing a few curious passersby, neither Pei Jun nor Neo de Bao would hear him. After cursing for a long while, the rage inside Hu Yurin gradually cooled. Once he regained his composure, he realized that this kind of outburst was pointless. With no other choice, he went back to find Fang Shua for help. When Fang Shua saw Hu Yurin's pitiful appearance, he was shocked. He had assumed the matter was settled once Wang Yuanheng approved it. He never expected Pei Jun to be so despicable as to withhold the official document. What was this behavior? It was outright abuse of power. To put it bluntly, this was criminal conduct. Yet Fang Shua remained calm. After some thought, he comforted Hu. Brother Hu, calm down first. Leave this matter to me. I'll handle it. Knowing that Fang Shua always had the best solutions, Hu Yurin simply nodded and left. After pondering briefly, Fang Shua immediately called Yi Anqi. Xiao Yi, do me a favor. Starting today, stake out the entrance of the Grain Bureau. Just 1 week, no longer. I need you to track Wang Yuanheng's movements. Yi Anqi was clever and patient, the perfect person for such a task. 1 week later, Yi Anqi reported to Fang Shua, Boss, after observing for a week, I've figured out Wang Yuanheng's routine. He follows a very regular schedule, arrives at work on time, and leaves on time. But every Friday afternoon, he goes to the hospital for a checkup. Since Wang Yuanheng had recently undergone tumor removal surgery, he needed regular hospital visits for follow-ups, picking up medication to suppress tumors, and letting doctors check whether any cancer cells remained. Hearing this, Fang Shua's mind sparked with an idea. A faint smile appeared on his face. Good job, Xiao Yi. You've earned your credit. I'll make a note of it. Just tell me what reward you want whenever you decide. After hanging up, Fang Shua called Hu Yurin. Old Hu, this Friday afternoon, bring old Qian along and meet me at the hospital. We're going to put on another show. On Friday afternoon, Fang Shua timed everything perfectly. He met up with Hu Yurin and Qian Lai at the hospital. Once they were together, Fang Shua whispered, Do you both remember what I told you earlier? Both Hu Yurin and Qian Lai nodded. We remember. Fang Shua smiled slightly. Good. Then let's split up. I'll go to the main entrance and keep watch. Once Wang Yuanheng shows up, we move quickly. With that, he turned and walked toward the entrance of the outpatient building, scanning the crowd in the distance. Wang Yuanheng was a man of strict routine, so his arrival time should have been predictable. As Fang Shua expected, within less than 10 minutes, Wang Yuanheng came into view. However, due to the crowd in the distance, Wang didn't notice Fang. Seeing Wang arrive, Fang pulled out his phone and dialed Qian Lai. Old Qian, he's here. Let's move. A few minutes later, Qian Lai supported Hu Yurin as they walked out and rejoined Fang Shua. Hu Yurin's head was wrapped in gauze, his expression extremely haggard, his eyes completely lifeless. Qian Lai helped him along, looking utterly dejected and sighing repeatedly. At the sight of their performance, Fang Shua couldn't help but give them a mental thumbs up. They were true veterans of the stage, such talent wasted in business. Their acting was so convincing. Just then, Wang Yuanhang had entered the outpatient building and happened to come face to face with Fang Shua's group. He stopped and turned around. "Isn't that Mr. Fang?" The three of them also halted and turned to look at him. "Oh, it's Director Wang. What a coincidence." Fang Shua deliberately wore an astonished expression. Wang Yuanhang smiled and approached. Just as he was about to speak, he noticed Hu Yurin's condition. His brow furrowed. "What happened to your friend?" Fang Shua sighed. "Don't even mention it. Last week, when he went to the grain bureau to collect the approval document, the security guards threw him out onto the street. My friend here has strong self-respect, so he couldn't bear it and went home and banged his head against the wall. Luckily, he didn't hit hard enough, and his wife saw it just in time and rushed him to the hospital. Otherwise, well, who knows what might have happened." Upon hearing this, Wang Yuanhang's face darkened. "What? Thrown out by security while collecting an approval document? What exactly happened?" Fang Shua opened his mouth to speak, but Qian Lai cut in. "Mr. Fang, forget it. Even if you say it now, it won't make any difference. After all, they hold the power. We can only accept our bad luck. Old Hu's pride is just too strong. He couldn't handle such humiliation. As the saying goes, official has two mouths. In this society, no matter how much you beg on your knees for help, people in power still might not lift a finger." Wang Yuanhang's face grew darker and darker. He spoke gravely. "Mr. Fang, I want you to tell me exactly what happened." He pointed toward a nearby bench. "Come, let's sit down over there and talk it through." Fang Shua nodded. Together with Qian Lai, he helped Hu Yurin sit down on the bench. Unable to contain himself any longer, Wang Yuanhang spoke first. "I already approved your document, didn't I? And yet, what exactly went wrong in between? Why were you thrown out by security?" Chapter 142, Severe Punishment Without Mercy. Fang Shua nodded slightly at Hu Yurin, who then proceeded to recount every detail of what had happened that day. When Wang Yuanhang heard the full story, he could no longer contain his fury and abruptly stood up. "This is outrageous. Completely lawless." His sudden outburst, combined with the loudness of his voice, drew the attention of others nearby. Realizing he had lost composure, Wang Yuanhang quickly cleared his throat and sat back down. His anger had overwhelmed him. He couldn't help it. How could someone under his command behave in such a manner? How could he not be furious? Pei Jun was merely a low-level clerk in the project management office. What authority did he have to block someone else's approval documents? And this was a file Wang himself had personally reviewed. It was a direct slap in the face. Fang Shua had saved his life. Wang had been eager to find a chance to repay the favor, and just when an opportunity arose, one of his own subordinates, a scoundrel, had ruined everything. Moreover, Fang Shua's plan to establish an agricultural base was a commendable initiative. Yet Pei Jun cared only about using his position for personal gain, completely forgetting the duties and responsibilities of a government officer. This man was nothing but a rotten apple spoiling the barrel. Wang Yuanhang had already wanted to deal with Pei Jun before, but now he had even stronger grounds to purge this person from his ranks. Still, having risen through the ranks from the grassroots level himself, Wang well understood that if he simply ordered Pei Jun's dismissal outright, the man would never accept it. Without catching him red-handed, Pei could always deny or shift blame. He'd seen such cases too many times to count. Suppressing his rage, Wang steadied his emotions and gravely said to Fang Shua, "Mr. Fang, please come to the Grain Bureau again next Monday. I assure you, you will receive your approval document without any problems. And anyone who dares obstruct you, I will not show them any leniency." He turned to Hu Yurin. "Mr. Hu, on behalf of the Grain Bureau, I sincerely apologize for what you've endured. Rest assured, I will make sure justice is served." Hu Yurin, his face filled with gratitude, said, "Thank you, Director Wang." Wang patted his shoulder. "It's only right. But I feel deeply ashamed that such a disgrace exists among my own staff." With that, he stood up and walked away. Once Wang Yuanhang left, Hu Yurin and Qian Lai turned to Fang Shua, both giving him a thumbs up. "Brother Fang, your tactic was brilliant. You've successfully ignited Director Wang's wrath. Looks like Pei Jun won't escape this time." Fang Shua chuckled softly but didn't respond. Qian Lai, puzzled, asked, "But Brother Fang, aren't you acquainted with Director Wang? Why didn't you just report the matter directly to him instead of resorting to this method?" Fang Shua smiled. "If I went straight to Wang Yuanhang, he'd certainly solve the problem for me. But that would mean I'd owe him a favor. There's another reason. If I reported Pei Jun directly, he might receive only a minor disciplinary action, perhaps nothing severe. Only by stirring Director Wang's anger can Pei Jun receive the harsh lesson he deserves." Hu Yurin and Qian Lai exchanged knowing looks. They now understood. The performance they'd staged before Wang Yuanhang, deliberately provoking his anger, meant that Wang would handle Pei Jun strictly without them needing to ask. And there was another crucial point. The approval document had been personally approved by Wang Yuanhang, the top official of the Grain Bureau, yet blocked by a mere clerk. If word got out, how could Wang save face? Given these two factors, there was no way Wang Yuanhang would let Pei Jun off lightly. The reason Fang Shua had gone to such lengths wasn't because he enjoyed creating trouble. Had Pei Jun merely delayed the review process, Fang might have overlooked it. But Pei Jun made a fatal mistake, teaming up with Niu Debao to have security guards throw Hu Yurin onto the street. Anyone who dared harm Fang Shua's friends would not be spared. On Monday, Fang Shua, Hu Yurin, and Qian Lai arrived together at the project management office of the Grain Bureau. When Pei Jun saw them enter, His face darkened. He snapped angrily. You're here again? Do you want me to call the police before you leave? Hu Yuren stepped forward to speak, but Fang Shuo gently stopped him. With a calm smile, Fang stepped forward and said to Pei Jun, Mr. Pei, we're here to collect our approval document. This is according to your Grain Bureau's notification. I assume you're aware of it. Pei Jun snorted. I already told you last time. Whomever you submitted your materials to, go get the document from them. I have nothing here. Now leave immediately. Fang Shuo remained unruffled. However, the notice I received clearly states that I should come to the project management office and hand over the documents to the responsible staff member. Since you are precisely that staff member, Mr. Pei, I have no choice but to deal with you. Because this is a notice issued by your Grain Bureau, which means the approval has already been granted and authorized by the Grain Bureau. I assume that since the entire Bureau has given its permission, Mr. Pei shouldn't have any issues either, right? Fang Shuo's meaning was now crystal clear. I'm here to collect the approval document as notified by the Grain Bureau. If you continue to withhold it, you're openly defying the Bureau's decision. This heavy accusation was something no one could afford to bear. Pei Jun's expression flickered. He hadn't expected Fang Shuo to be so articulate. But he had already accepted benefits from Nyo Debao, so there was no way he could hand over the document. Unable to argue his way out, he resorted to his usual tactic. His face darkened, and he snapped fiercely. I've already told you. If you submitted the materials to someone, go get the document from them. Leave immediately, or I'll call security. Fang Shuo replied calmly. You claim we're causing trouble, but it's us who are acting reasonably and with justification. I've made it very clear. The notice I received instructed me to come to the project management office and submit the documents to the responsible staff member. Unless you're telling me you're not that staff member, Mr. Pei, then I have no choice but to deal with you. Pei Jun glared. How am I not the staff member? But I don't have your approval document. I've told you repeatedly, yet you refuse to listen. Fine then, I won't call security anymore. I'll just call the police. He picked up the phone, pretending to dial an emergency number. But Fang Shuo and the other two showed no intention of leaving, continuing to watch him impassively. Pei Jun had no intention of actually calling the police. Escalating the situation would do him no good. So instead, he changed numbers and called the security department, ordering them to send guards to remove the intruders. Hello, security department? Send several guards over here immediately. There are troublemakers in my office. Hearing this, Fang Shuo shrugged. Mr. Pei, let's be clear, exactly which part of our behavior qualifies as provocation. From beginning to end, we've only spoken based on facts and reason. Yet you keep dodging, deliberately withholding the approval document. Pei Jun slammed down the phone and shot Fang Shuo a venomous glare. I don't have time to waste on you. Security will be here soon. Take it up with them. Finally, Fang Shuo's expression turned stern. Mr. Pei, this is the Grain Bureau, a place meant to serve the people. Yet you've turned it into your personal playground for abusing power. Don't you fear legal consequences for your actions? Chapter 143. The law is vast and spares no one. Pei Jun sneered coldly and arrogantly declared, legal punishment? Here, I am the law. Before his words had even settled, a sharp shout rang out. Pei Jun, you've completely lost all sense of right and wrong. You dare say you are the law? Who gave you that authority? At the sound of the voice, Pei Jun's face instantly changed. Everyone turned toward the source of the voice and saw Wang Yuanhang striding in from outside, his face filled with anger. Pei Jun quickly jumped up and hurried forward, forcing a smile as he said, Director Wang, what brings you here? Wang Yuanhang snorted sharply. Thank goodness I came. Otherwise, I'd never have known just how much power you've given yourself. Now you represent the law itself. A muscle on Pei Jun's face twitched. He hastily explained, Director Wang, I misspoke in the heat of the moment. These people started causing trouble the moment they walked in, demanding approval documents outright. I told them they must first prepare the required materials and submit them for review. Only after passing the review would they receive the documents. But they refused to listen, insisting I hand over the approvals immediately. They even threatened me, saying they have powerful connections who will fire me on the spot if I don't comply. Director Wang, you've always taught us that as civil servants, we must never bend the rules or act unjustly. We must abide by regulations. So when it comes to those who rely on their connections and constantly seek backdoor shortcuts, I absolutely cannot show leniency. Hearing Pei Jun spout such blatant lies with such self-righteousness, Wang Yuanhang couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. He pointed at Fang Shuo and the others and asked, Are they the ones asking you for the approval document for Jiangzhou Zhoning Development Company, Limited's agricultural-based construction project? Pei Jun hesitated for a second, then instinctively nodded. Why yes. Wang Yuanhang's expression darkened, and suddenly raised his voice. That approval was personally reviewed and signed off by me. Pei Jun's face turned pale. He took a step back. What? Wang Yuanhang pointed straight at Pei Jun's nose and shouted. Pei Jun, you deliberately made things difficult for them earlier, falsely claiming they lacked documents and refusing to process their application. I haven't even dealt with that yet. Now you're worse. You've already received the approval document, yet you've been withholding it and refusing to hand it over. Let me ask you, who gave you the right to do this? What authority do you have to withhold official documents from them? Don't think I don't know your dirty little secrets. Before coming here, I investigated everything thoroughly. You've been closely associated with a man named Nyo Debao, and he's transferred large sums of money into your personal account. Did he pay you specifically to create artificial obstacles during the approval process? Pei Jun, as a civil servant, you've accepted bribes in secret. The nerve you have. Right now, I'm officially informing you that you are dismissed from your position at the Jiangzhou City Grain Bureau. Furthermore, I've already called the police. They'll be taking you into custody for criminal prosecution." Upon hearing this, Pei Jun turned ashen gray. With a thud, he collapsed to his knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "Director Wang, I was forced into this. It was all Niu Debao. He's the one who ordered me. It's all his fault," Wang Yuanhang said coldly. "Don't think you can shift all the blame onto him. He won't escape either." Just as he spoke, loud police sirens wailed outside. Several police cars raced up and screeched to a halt in front of the grain bureau. Several officers stepped out and swiftly entered the project management office. After showing their arrest warrant, they handcuffed Pei Jun and took him away. One officer stepped forward and asked, "Who here is Hu Yurin?" Hu Yurin quickly raised his hand. "It's me. What do you need?" The officer said, "You know Niu Debao, right? He's been arrested by our public security authorities on charges of bribery. According to his confession, you're also involved. Please come back with us to give a statement and assist in our investigation." Hu Yurin glanced at Fang Shuo, who gave him an encouraging nod. He then replied firmly, "All right, I'll go with you." Fang Shuo quietly said to Hu Yurin, "Old Hu, go ahead. I'll follow shortly. I'll have Lao Qian accompany you." Hu Yurin and Qian Lai left with the officers, while Fang Shuo remained behind. Wang Yuanhang fully understood Fang Shuo's intention. He opened Pei Jun's office drawer and retrieved the approval document, then handed it to Fang Shuo with both hands. "Mr. Fang, I deeply regret that such an incident occurred. I never imagined there would be such a black sheep within our ranks. Fortunately, we discovered it in time and acted swiftly, preventing further damage." Fang Shuo smiled. "Director Wang, although a lot happened along the way, I still want to thank you. Without your help, we couldn't have obtained the approval documents so smoothly." Wang Yuanhang nodded and said, "You're doing something beneficial for the people. That's a good thing. If you ever need my help in the future, just say the word. Anything that benefits the country and the common people, I, Wang Yuanhang, will never back down from." Fang Shuo laughed. "With those words, I can rest easy. Then I won't disturb you any further. I'll take my leave now." The two shook hands and bid each other farewell. Fang Shuo then left the grain bureau and headed toward the police station. In truth, giving the statement was a simple and quick process. Hu Yurin told everything exactly as it had happened, without holding anything back. After finishing, he signed his name on the transcript. The officer informed him that if Niu Debao and Pei Jun were to be prosecuted, he might be needed as a witness in court. Hu Yurin naturally didn't hesitate and readily agreed. A few days later, Niu Debao and Pei Jun were formally prosecuted. Hu Yurin received notice and appeared at the courthouse as a witness. Since the trial wasn't open to the public, Fang Shuo and Qian Lai couldn't attend and could only wait outside. After the trial concluded, both Pei Jun and Niu Debao were sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. When the trial ended, Hu Yurin didn't leave immediately. He waited outside, and when Niu Debao was being escorted out of the courtroom, he stepped forward and said to the bailiff, "Excuse me, I'd like to say a couple of words to him." The bailiff nodded and reminded him to be quick. Hu Yurin looked at Niu Debao and sighed. "We never had any real grudge against each other, yet you went out of your way to oppose me over some meaningless things, even going so far as to break the law. To be honest, even though we've been at odds our entire lives, and you framed me more than once, I don't actually hate you. I just think you're pitiful because once you got stuck in that narrow mindset, you never managed to get out. Niu Debao, reflect properly while you're inside. I hope you can truly repent, reform yourself, and start anew. During your time in prison, I'll take care of your wife and son. Serve your sentence in peace." Niu Debao looked deeply at Hu Yurin, then let out a long sigh. "Thanks." Then he was led away. Chapter 144, Office Space. Fang Shuo's team successfully obtained the Grain Bureau's approval document, and Qian Lai had also secured the Agricultural Bureau's approval. The preliminary work was nearly complete. All that remained was waiting for the funds to arrive. After everything was ready, Fang Shuo specially called Hu Yurin and Qian Lai over for a meeting, announcing that he had something important to declare. So Hu Yurin and Qian Lai came to Fang Shuo's home. Upon entering, they were surprised to find Long Wanqing already there. Fang Shuo smiled and gestured for them to sit down, then said, "Old Hu, Old Qian, let me officially announce this. Miss Long Wanqing has formally joined our project. She will become our new shareholder through investment and equity participation." Hu Yurin and Qian Lai were first stunned, then simultaneously burst into applause. Hu Yurin laughed. "Fantastic. With Miss Long on board, our company will be like a tiger gaining wings." Qian Lai chimed in. Welcome. We'll be fighting side by side again. Miss Long is one of us. Having another ally makes things much easier." Long Wanqing nodded. "Thank you all for your support. Actually, I have a suggestion regarding the company's share distribution. I propose we each reduce our current shareholdings. I see great potential in this project, so I'm certain others will want to join later. If we lower our own stake percentages now, it'll save everyone time and effort in signing transfer agreements every time someone new wants in." As soon as she finished speaking, Fang Shuo immediately voiced his agreement. "Exactly. That's precisely what I was thinking, but Miss Long beat me to saying it. Even if we don't adjust our shares now, once our company goes public in the future, our ownership percentages will naturally decrease anyway." Hu Yurin and Qian Lai exchanged a glance and said together, "Brother Fang, we'll follow your lead." Immediately, Fang Shuo revised the share distribution. As the legal representative of the company, he would hold 10%, while Hu Yurin and Qian Lai would each take 7%, and Long Wanqing would take 5%. This arrangement allowed flexibility for future members to join with appropriate equity stakes based on actual circumstances. After finalizing the allocation, Long Wanqing spoke up again. Now that we've established the company and formed our board of 4, the next step is finding a fixed office space. An office is the foundation of any company. Without a proper base, we can't keep holding meetings at Feng Shua's place every time, right? Feng Shua grinned. Don't worry about that. I've already picked out a location. And the price is unbelievably low. Where did you find? Long Wanqing asked. Right in the city center, high-end office building. I've already negotiated the price with the landlord. Just 1 yuan per square meter per day. Feng Shua said proudly. In premium commercial buildings, rent isn't charged monthly, but rather per square meter per day. A fair system since offices vary in size, with smaller ones paying less and larger ones more. Currently, Feng Shua's team only consisted of 4 people, so they didn't need a large space. He rented an office of about 100 square meters, which cost slightly over 10,000 yuan per month. This setup provided each of them with a private office, plus enough extra room to serve as a meeting area. Long Wanqing looked surprised. A high-end office building in the city center charging only 1 yuan per square meter per day? That's less than half the market rate. She said this because her own company, Longjia, paid 3.5 yuan per square meter daily, around 100,000 yuan in monthly rent alone. Typical rates for premium downtown offices range between 3 to 5 yuan per square meter per day. She couldn't believe Feng Shua had found such an incredibly cheap deal. Could there be something wrong with the place? Is it possibly a haunted house? Long Wanqing frowned. Usually, when prices seemed too good to be true, there was a reason. The most common explanation was that the location might have been the site of a previous murder or tragedy, making tenants reluctant to move in, forcing landlords to slash prices drastically. In business, feng shui and fortune were taken very seriously. No matter how low the rent, few dared to lease a place with such dark history. But Feng Shua shook his head. Don't jump to conclusions. It's a completely legitimate property, definitely not some haunted apartment. Then why is the rent so low? Long Wanqing pressed. When I bought my apartment earlier, Chen Daio introduced me to a friend named Xiao Xuejing. This entire office building belongs to him. When he heard I needed office space, he offered me a discounted rate. Hu Yuren suddenly understood. Ah, Xiao Xuejing. I know that guy. He's got connections, knows how to get things done. So you're renting from him. Long Wanqing frowned. Even if you bought an apartment from him before, he's not related to you in any way. Why would he rent it to you at such a low price? Feng Shua shrugged. I don't know either. Maybe because I'm doing something he failed to accomplish, so he wants to support me. Xiao Xuejing had once attempted to run an agricultural base, but ultimately failed. This was something Hu Yuren and the others were aware of, and Long Wanqing had also heard about it. Still, she couldn't believe that Xiao Xuejing would offer Feng Shua such a favorable deal just for that. When something seems too unusual, there's usually a catch. A trace of suspicion remained in Long Wanqing's mind. Of course, she had no idea that Xiao Xuejing actually believed Feng Shua had powerful connections and was trying to curry favor with him. When he learned Feng Shua needed office space, he seized the opportunity and readily rented out his own commercial building at an extremely low rate. If Long Wanqing knew the truth, she'd probably be utterly speechless. I've already discussed it with Xiao Xuejing. Tomorrow I'll go pay the deposit. Once it's paid, we can start looking for contractors to renovate. I don't really have any ideas about the office layout. Could you guys give me some suggestions? Feng Shua smiled. Hearing this, Hu Yuren and Qian Lai both felt excited. They never imagined that one day they'd actually have their own company and their own office. In the past, when they worked at Jiangzhou Agricultural Products Company, they did have offices, but those weren't theirs. Now, they truly owned an office space entirely under their name. By the way, why don't you come with me tomorrow to check it out? If you're not satisfied, I can ask Xiao Xuejing to switch us to another unit. Feng Shua suggested. Sure, I'd love to see it, and maybe plan ahead a bit to figure out how we want the renovation done, Qian Lai said enthusiastically. Long Wanqing shrugged. You guys go ahead. I have things to attend to at my company tomorrow, so I won't come along. Anyway, I don't have many requirements for the office. Just keep it clean. The 3 of them agreed on a time to visit the building together and pay the deposit, then parted ways. The next day, after dropping Guo off, Feng Shua went with Hu Yuren and Qian Lai to the high-end office building. Located in the heart of Jiangzhou City, the building looked incredibly grand just from its outward appearance. Chapter 145, Got the Wrong Person. Staring at the towering, imposing office building, Hu Yuren couldn't help but exclaim, Brother Feng, old Chen's friend is really something. Building such a tall structure in the city center, without serious connections and background, this kind of thing just isn't possible. Feng Shua admitted. Yes, you're absolutely right. Xiao Xuejing has a certain reputation in the real estate industry. His background truly is solid. Otherwise, how could a bank lend you millions for construction without sufficient collateral? Qian Lai nodded emphatically. Exactly. The people in the bank's credit department are all snobs. If you go to them looking for a mortgage loan, they'll appraise $1 million asset at only 500,000. Having run a supermarket himself, he was very familiar with bank loans. When he first started his business, he'd sought bank financing and hit numerous roadblocks. Feng Shua waved his hand. Come on, let's go inside first. The 3 of them walked into the office building and made their way up to the property management office on the 2nd floor. Feng Shua had already arranged everything in advance with the property manager, Qiao Zhen. He was here today to pay the deposit and collect the keys. When they arrived at the property management office, however, Qiao Zhen wasn't there. Feng Shua asked a nearby staff member. Excuse me, where's Manager Qiao? The employee replied. Just now, Manager Chiao went to show apartment 1109 to 2 tenants. Feng Shuo froze upon hearing that. 1109? That was the unit he had set his heart on. He thanked the worker and quickly led Hu Yurin and Qian Lai to the elevator, heading up to the 11th floor. By sheer coincidence, they ran into Qiao Zhen along with 2 young men walking toward the elevators. Feng Shuo looked closely and was stunned. The 2 young men were both people he knew. Leading the group was Guan Yunshuai, and behind him was Lin Bing, Lin Feng's younger brother. Lin Bing was cradling a briefcase, probably Guan Yunshuai's, with a subservient posture, following behind with a face full of flattery and fawning. As Qiao Zhen walked, he said with a smile, "Boss Guan, are you satisfied with the apartment?" Guan Yunshuai nodded. "Satisfied? Of course I'm satisfied. Such a great office space at such a low rent. It's an incredible deal. Manager Qiao, I really have to thank you." Qiao Zhen beamed. "Oh, don't say that. You're too kind, Boss Guan. This is all because of instructions from our boss, Mr. Xiao. Oh, by the way, if you happen to see Mr. Xiao, please be sure to say a few good words for me." Guan Yunshuai hesitated for a moment, then immediately patted his chest. "No problem at all. Don't worry." Qiao Zhen instantly lit up with delight. And so the 2 groups, Feng Shua's trio and Guan Yunshuai's pair, faced each other directly. Guan Yunshuai and Lin Bing hadn't expected to run into Feng Shua here, so they both froze momentarily. But quickly, they each flashed a cold sneer. Feng Shua ignored them completely and turned straight to Qiao Zhen. "Manager Qiao, didn't we agree that I would come today to pay the deposit? And 1109 was reserved by me. Why are you showing it to other people?" Qiao Zhen sized Feng Shua up and down. "And who might you be?" Feng Shua felt exasperated. "My name is Feng Shua. I contacted you earlier. I told you I'd come today to pay the deposit. I mentioned I know your boss, Xiao Xuejing. Don't tell me you've already forgotten." Upon hearing this, Qiao Zhen's face immediately soured. "Everyone who comes here claims to know our boss. How am I supposed to know if you're telling the truth or not?" Guan Yunshuai sneered. "Manager Qiao, you really work hard. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry who shows up here says they're friends with your boss. You actually waste time trying to verify whether it's true or not." Qiao Zhen snorted coldly. "Actually, I don't need to verify anything. Our boss's real friends will naturally call ahead to inform me beforehand, just like Boss Guan here. As for those who haven't been announced in advance, well, anyone can guess. They're almost certainly frauds. I've seen plenty of these types. I'm used to it by now." Feng Shua instantly understood. So this Qiao Zhen was simply clueless. He had mistaken Guan Yunshuai for him. It was just a bizarre coincidence. Guan Yunshuai had arrived slightly earlier than Feng Shua's group, and Qiao Zhen had indeed received prior instructions from Xiao Xuejing. Someone would come today to pay a deposit, and he was to assist them. Moreover, Xiao Xuejing had specifically instructed that the rent should be charged at 1 yuan per square meter per day, and that Xiao should prepare the contract in advance. So Qiao Zhen had everything ready. Just then, Guan Yunshuai arrived with Lin Bing to rent an office. Qiao Zhen assumed Guan Yunshuai must be the person his boss had mentioned and immediately took him to view Unit 1109. Seeing that Guan was satisfied, Qiao was about to lead both Guan Yunshuai and Lin Bing back to the office to finalize the paperwork. Feng Shua couldn't help but smile wryly. He reminded, "Manager Qiao, don't you think you should confirm with your boss first? If you've mistaken the person, won't your boss be furious with you?" Qiao Zhen froze upon hearing this. "What do you mean?" Feng Shua pointed at his own nose. "Me? I'm the one who's your boss's friend." Qiao Zhen looked back and forth between Guan Yunshuai and Feng Shua, suddenly feeling confused. At the same time, a trace of doubt crept into his mind. Could he have made a mistake after all? At that moment, Guan Yunshuai tugged on Qiao Zhen's arm. "Manager Qiao, don't let someone like him fool you. I know this guy well, and I'm fully aware of his connections. The man beside me used to be his brother-in-law. We know exactly what kind of people are in his circle." Lin Bing immediately nodded. "That's right. He was nothing more than a salesperson at some small company before. With his status, there's no way he could ever have access to a big shot like Mr. Xiao. Manager Qiao, you'd better be careful not to get swindled." Hearing Guan Yunshuai and Lin Bing speak so confidently, any lingering doubts in Qiao Zhen's mind vanished completely. His expression turned cold as he said sharply, "Sir, if you're here to rent an office, please go through the proper procedures at the property management office. But if you're trying to pull off some scam, then you've come to the wrong place. I, Qiao Zhen, may only be a property manager, but I won't let just anyone come here and make a mess." Upon hearing these words, Hu Yurin and Qian Lai immediately wore looks of anger on their faces. After all, nobody would feel good being called a nobody. Feng Shua felt angry inside too, but he didn't show it. He simply gave a calm nod. "Since that's how it is, I won't say anything more." With that, he turned around. "Old Hu, old Qian, let's go." With those words, the 3 of them walked away. Qiao Zhen snorted contemptuously at their retreating figures. "Humph, thinking you can pull tricks in front of me, Qiao Zhen? You're far too naive." He led Guan Yunshuai and Lin Bing back to the property management office, completed all the formalities for them, and signed the lease agreement. As for the lease term, it was left blank, undetermined. This was actually according to Xiao Xuejing's instructions. Let them rent for however long they wanted. Seeing that the lease term wasn't specified, Guan Yunshuai took the liberty to fill in a duration himself. And true to his greedy nature, he wrote down 10 years. Chapter 146, Furious. After signing the contract and paying the deposit, Guan Yunshuai and Lin Bing left the office building with broad smiles on their faces. Once outside, Lin Bing could no longer hold back his panic. "Bro-in-law, you've got some nerve. That manager Qiao must have mistaken you for someone else. Why didn't you clarify things?" Guan Yunshuai waved it off dismissively. That's exactly why you'll never amount to much. It was Xiao Zhen who made the mistake, not us. The error is on his end, not ours. This is a golden opportunity falling right into our laps. Now that we've signed the contract and paid the deposit, everything is set in stone. Even if Xiao Xuejin himself shows up, what can he do to me? Let me tell you this, their side is clearly in the wrong. We're just taking advantage of a lucky break, nothing wrong with that. If everyone were as timid as you, always fearing wolves ahead and tigers behind, nobody would ever make any money. Yeah, I only came here to take a look, but ended up grabbing such a huge windfall. What excites me most is that this benefit was originally meant for Feng Shuo, but now I've snatched it from him. Hearing this, Lin Bing couldn't help but flash a sycophantic smile. You truly are my bro-in-law, absolutely brilliant. The look on that little punk Feng Shuo's face earlier nearly made me burst out laughing. Guan Yunshui glanced at Lin Bing. You really have no conscience. Feng Shuo used to be your brother-in-law, and he treated you well, and yet you don't feel the slightest bit of gratitude. Lin Bing snorted. Don't even mention it. Treated me well? Uffed. If it weren't for my sister secretly funneling family money back to her parents, I wouldn't have gotten a single penny from him. That guy Feng Shuo never gave me a kind word. When he was making sales money, he strutted around like he owned the place, always lecturing me about being unmotivated. Just thinking about it makes me furious. Besides, he's divorced my sister now. From this day forward, we have absolutely nothing to do with each other. You're my real bro-in-law now, my true brother-in-law. Hearing this, Guan Yunshui burst into laughter. Well said. Lin Bing, go straight to the real estate agency now and put up a rental listing. Our contract says 1 yuan per square meter per day, listed at 4, and don't go below 350. Haha, just imagine, earning tens of thousands every month doing absolutely nothing. I'm already excited. Laughing all the way, the two men got into their car and drove back to their company. Feng Shuo calmly led Hu Yurin and Qian Lai away. On the way back, he called Chen Dayo. Brother Chen, I need a favor. Chen Dayo replied immediately. Speak freely, Brother Feng. I'd like to rent an office space for my company. Since you're in real estate, do you know of any suitable places? Could you recommend something? Chen Dayo paused, surprised. You shouldn't be asking me. Why not ask Xiao Xuejin? You should have his contact info. He owns plenty of office buildings downtown. Going through him would be perfect. And given our friendship, he'd definitely give you a good deal. Feng Shuo deliberately let out a bitter chuckle. Forget it, I'd rather not involve him. Actually, I already reached out to him. He agreed at first. But today, when I went to sign the contract and pay the deposit, he told me the office had already been rented out to someone else. I know full well he didn't want to charge me market rate because of you. So he chose this sneaky way to refuse me. We're supposed to be friends. If he didn't want to rent to me, he could have just said so outright. Why play these games with me? Upon hearing this, Chen Dayo instantly flew into a rage. What? He actually did that? That bastard. His eyes are only for money. Brother Feng, hang on a second. I'm calling him right now to settle this. The moment Chen Dayo hung up, fury surged straight to the top of his head. Feng Shuo was his savior. No matter how much he tried, he could never fully repay that debt. Without Feng Shuo, he would have died a miserable death, never achieving what he had today. Chen Dayo was a man who valued loyalty and emotion deeply. He and Hu Yurin became close friends partly because they shared similar temperaments, and now, he regarded Feng Shuo as a lifelong benefactor. Xiao Xuejin was also his friend. They had a solid relationship. That's why when he heard Feng Shuo wanted property, he happily introduced Xiao Xuejin to him. But he never expected Xiao Xuejin to be this kind of person, deceitful and double-faced toward Feng Shuo. Chen Dayo was a straightforward man who despised hypocrisy more than anything. He thought Xiao Xuejin wasn't like that, but now, faced with undeniable facts, he had no choice but to believe it. Even more infuriating, he was the one who connected them. Now that Feng Shuo had been wronged, he too bore some responsibility. In blazing anger, Chen Dayo immediately dialed Xiao Xuejin's number. Soon the call connected, and Xiao Xuejin, unaware that Chen Dayo was fuming with anger, chuckled. Old Chen, calling me at this hour, don't tell me you're inviting me for drinks? It's been a while since we last got together for a drink. Chen Dayo roared. Drink your sister's drink. Xiao Xuejin, I'm cutting ties with you. Xiao Xuejin was taken aback. Chen Dayo, what's wrong with you? It's broad daylight. Are you drunk or something? I haven't touched a drop. I'll have you know. Don't play dumb with me. You know exactly what you've done. Xiao Xuejin grew even more confused. What did I do? Chen Dayo demanded. I'm asking you, did Feng Shuo come to you to rent an office? Xiao Xuejin replied. Of course. I even rented him an office at the lowest possible price. Chen Dayo exploded. Bullshit. You promised him face-to-face that he could have it, but behind his back, you rented it out to someone else. How could I possibly think you'd turn into someone like this? Feng Shuo is my benefactor. If you didn't want to rent him the office, just say so outright. What kind of cowardly trick is this? Smiling to his face while stabbing him in the back. Xiao Xuejin finally understood and frowned. Old Chen, calm down first. I don't know what went wrong somewhere, but I swear on my honor, I didn't pull any double-dealing stunt. Look, give me some time. I'll find out exactly what happened. If there's a problem on my end, I'll personally apologize to you, and to Feng Shuo. How does that sound? Chen Dayo snorted. Fine. Give me an explanation as soon as possible. With that, he hung up. Xiao Xuejin's expression turned grim immediately. He now realized something might have truly gone wrong. He instantly dialed Xiao Zhen's number and barked into the phone. Xiao Zhen, how did you handle that matter I entrusted you with? Hearing it was his boss, Xiao Zhen promptly replied proudly. Boss, rest assured, it's all settled. The contract's signed, and I've already collected the deposit. Xiao Xuejin pressed on. Are you certain the contract was signed? Fax me a copy right away. Got it. Sending it over immediately. Chapter 147. Apologizing in person. A few minutes later, Xiao Xuejin received the fax. When he saw the name signed on the contract, he nearly exploded with rage. He immediately snatched up the phone and shouted into it. Xiao Zhen, what the hell are you doing? You couldn't even handle such a simple task properly? I specifically emphasized that my friend would come today to pay the deposit. Look at what you've done. Xiao Zhen was completely baffled. But sir, your friend paid the deposit, signed the contract. What's the problem? You got the wrong person. Xiao Xuejin roared. Huh. Xiao Zhen felt as if struck by lightning, frozen in shock. At that moment, it suddenly dawned on him. He recalled how Feng Shuai had repeatedly urged him to confirm everything carefully. But he had trusted Guan Yunshui instead, treating Feng Shuai like a fraudster. Now he finally woke up to the truth. Guan Yunshui was the real deceiver. An overwhelming wave of regret instantly flooded his mind. If he could turn back time, he'd beat Guan Yunshui half to death, then respectfully accept Feng Shuai's deposit and sign the contract without hesitation. How could I have someone as stupid as you working for me? What use are you to me? Pack your things and get out while you still can. Xiao Xuejin fumed. Truthfully, Xiao Xuejin genuinely wanted to befriend Feng Shuai. He himself had run an agricultural base before and knew all too well how many departments needed to approve such projects before construction could even begin. Back then, despite having connections and influence, he'd still hit a wall in one critical step and ultimately had to abandon the project midway. So he understood better than anyone just how difficult this kind of thing was. Yet Feng Shuai had managed to secure all the necessary permits. Even the notoriously tough Grain Bureau approval was in his hands. Xiao concluded that Feng must have extremely powerful backing. Such a person was absolutely worth cultivating, even flattering. He willingly rented his high-end office building to Feng Shuai at an extremely low price simply to build a friendship and expand his network. If any trouble arose in the future, Feng Shuai would surely be able to lend support. And now, all his careful planning had been ruined by one idiotic subordinate. Worse yet, because Chun Daiyou mistakenly believed Xiao didn't want to rent the building to Feng Shuai, he'd resorted to underhanded tactics, pretending cooperation while secretly opposing. As a result, Chun Daiyou was now furious, threatening to cut ties with Xiao entirely. If Xiao Xuejin hadn't endured countless storms in his life and built up a strong resilience, he might have collapsed from anger by now. Xiao Zhen had served under him for several years. Otherwise, dismissal wouldn't be the only consequence. Boss Xiao, please give me another chance. I'll figure out how to make this right. No, I will fix this. I'll go find Mr. Fong myself. Even if I have to kneel before him and beg for forgiveness, I will do it. Xiao Zhen pleaded desperately. He couldn't bear to lose this job. Though the property manager position wasn't particularly powerful, being close to Xiao Xuejin meant every tenant in the building treated him with great respect. Some even secretly gave him kickbacks to stay on his good side. It was a cushy, profitable role, and there was no way he'd let it slip away so easily. Hearing Xiao Zhen's plea, Xiao Xuejin's anger subsided slightly. Coldly, he said, you have 2 days. Fix this mess. Otherwise, don't blame me when you can't swallow the consequences. With that, he hung up. Xiao Zhen dared not waste a second. He quickly pulled up Feng Shuai's number from the call log and dialed. As soon as the phone connected, Xiao Zhen spoke in an obsequious tone. Mr. Fong? Hello? This is Xiao Zhen. So, I've looked into the matter thoroughly just now, and that guy Guan Yunshui is actually a fraud. This whole incident was just a misunderstanding. On behalf of my previous attitude, I offer you my sincerest apologies. Mr. Fong, I hope you'll be magnanimous enough to forgive me. Feng Shuai replied calmly. Oh, that matter? Since you understand it was a misunderstanding, clearing it up should settle everything. I'm not petty. I won't hold a grudge over this. Well then, goodbye. Before Xiao Zhen could respond, Feng Shuai hung up. Xiao Zhen stood there stunned, at a loss. He considered himself a seasoned player. Deep down, he knew very well. The calmer Feng Shuai sounded right now, the angrier he truly was. If Feng had yelled and cursed at him earlier, it would have been fine. What scared him most was this polite, forgiving demeanor. Xiao Zhen wasn't foolish enough to believe Feng had actually forgiven him. If this were really so easy to resolve, would Xiao Xuejin have blown up like that? So he quickly dialed again, speaking with sincere urgency. Mr. Fong, I haven't finished what I was saying just now. Because of my negligence, our boss gave me a severe scolding, and I've fully recognized my mistake. That's exactly why I'm calling you now, to make things right. Mr. Fong, where are you? I'd like to come in person and apologize to you directly. Feng Shuai didn't refuse. He gave him an address. Xiao Zhen hung up the phone and hurried out the door. Half an hour later, he arrived at a tea restaurant and quickly spotted Feng Shuai, Hu Rinyu, and Qian Lai. The three of them were leisurely sipping tea and eating dim sum, appearing utterly relaxed and content. Yet, the more at ease they seemed, the more uneasy Xiao Zhen felt inside. Anyone who could be friends with his boss was certainly no ordinary person. And the fact that his boss was willing to rent the office building to Feng Shuai at such a low price clearly meant this man had serious influence. Xiao Zhen knew people like this usually kept their emotions hidden. Don't be fooled by their calm demeanor. Just because they appear relaxed, as if nothing happened, doesn't mean they aren't furious inside. Frankly, anyone would be angry in this situation. Xiao Zhen hurried over with a forced smile on his face. Mr. Fong, Mr. Hu, Mr. Qian, hello to all three of you. I came here specially just to apologize to you in person. This incident occurred due to my oversight and failure in duty. But I can assure all three of you, I will never repeat the same mistake again. Feng Shuai casually raised his hand. Manager Xiao, you really don't need to go out of your way to say all this. Don't be nervous, we won't hold it against you. It's just an office space after all. It's not like there's only one office building in Jiangzhou. At these words, Xiao Zhan's heart sank. The meaning was crystal clear. Feng Shuo intended to rent office space elsewhere, and would no longer consider renting from Xiao Xuejin's building. If Feng Shuo actually went somewhere else, Xiao Zhan would be finished. In his rage, Xiao Xuejin wouldn't just fire him. He'd likely be blacklisted from the entire industry. So Xiao Zhan hastily said, "You're absolutely right, Mr. Feng. Still, while there are other office buildings in Jiangzhou, I can guarantee you, one thing is certain, no one offers lower rent than us." Chapter 148 Never Let Go. Feng Shuo said nothing, but just stared at Xiao Zhan. Seeing that Feng Shuo made no response, Xiao Zhan continued, "Mr. Feng, the office you previously liked was room 1109, right? That office has already been rented out, so unfortunately I can't offer it to you. But don't worry, since I'm the property manager, I have the authority to rent you another unit. This one is twice the size of room 1109, yet the rent will still be calculated based on the original area of room 1109. In other words, Xiao Zhan was offering Feng Shuo an office twice as large for the same price he had originally agreed upon. Given that Xiao Xuejin had already set a generous rate for Feng Shuo, this new deal effectively cut the cost in half. It was practically free. If even now Feng Shuo refused, then Xiao Zhan really would have no other options left. Feng Shuo didn't express agreement or disagreement. Instead, he turned to Hu Yuran and asked, "Old Hu, what do you think?" Hu Yuran nodded. "Yeah, I think it's acceptable. And Manager Qiao has been very sincere. Maybe we should just go ahead and take their office." Feng Shuo turned to Qianlai. "Old Qian, what about you?" Qianlai also agreed with Hu Yuran. "Does it matter whose office we rent? Since Boss Xiao is your friend, better keep the profits within the family." Feng Shuo nodded. "All right then, since you both agree, I'll have to go along too. So Manager Qiao, could you please show us the new office and let us see what it looks like?" Wiping the cold sweat from his forehead, Xiao Zhan finally felt the heavy stone lift from his chest. At the same time, a sense of respect, and even fear, arose in him toward Feng Shuo. This man was formidable, clearly a typical person in power. The way he spoke carried the unmistakable tone of someone used to being in command. Truthfully, Feng Shuo had already made up his mind. The moment Xiao Zhan offered him double the space for the same rent, his decision was sealed. Yet, instead of stating it outright, he deliberately sought opinions from Hu Yuran and Qianlai. Though it seemed like mere consultation, this was exactly where his true skill lay. He used others' voices to convey his own intentions, yet kept people uncertain whether these were truly his thoughts. A competent leader must never allow others to see through his mind. This was an age-old tactic of emperors throughout history, and a crucial skill successful business managers needed to master. In his previous life, Feng Shuo had managed assets worth tens of billions. If his thoughts could be easily read, wouldn't he have constantly placed himself at a disadvantage? Then, Xiao Zhan led Feng Shuo, Hu Yuran, and Qianlai back to the office building and took them to another office on the 12th floor. Just as Xiao Zhan had described, the space was twice the size of room 1109, with excellent orientation, an entire wall of floor-to-ceiling windows facing the street outside. From the window, the panoramic view of the city center stretched out before them. Working here wouldn't only elevate one's mood, but also allow room for future expansion as the team grew. All three of them were extremely satisfied. They quickly signed the contract with Xiao Zhan and paid the rent. Once everything was settled, Feng Shuo and his companions took their leave. Xiao Zhan sighed deeply in relief and immediately called Xiao Xuejing. "Boss Xiao, I've handled it. Mr. Feng and his people have paid the deposit and signed the contract." "Got it," replied Xiao Xuejing simply, before hanging up. Though he hadn't asked how Xiao Zhan had resolved the situation, Xiao Xuejing already knew. Xiao Zhan had only so much authority. Anything beyond that, he couldn't decide on his own. The fact that Xiao Zhan hadn't called for instructions meant he'd resolved the issue within his own scope of power, and the solution could only have been offering Feng Shuo far greater concessions. Xiao Xuejing had never really expected to profit from Feng Shuo, anyway. But because of this whole mess, he'd suffered yet another pointless loss. And aside from Xiao Zhan's incompetence, the most despicable figure in all this was that guy named Guan Yunshui. Xiao Xuejing had already looked into Guan Yunshui's background, and found that the man was the owner of Shifei Industrial, a somewhat wealthy individual. But by Xiao Xuejing's standards, Guan's wealth was insignificant. What made Guan Yunshui utterly contemptible was that, despite knowing Xiao Zhan had mistaken him for someone else, he chose not to correct the error, thus gaining an undeserved advantage. But did Guan Yunshui really think Xiao Xuejing's favors were easy to claim? Worse, this man had nearly cost Xiao Xuejing a valuable friendship. There was absolutely no way Xiao Xuejing would swallow this insult. The more Xiao Xuejing thought about it, the angrier he became. He immediately called Xiao Zhan. "That guy named Guan Yunshui. He rented room 1109, right? I want you to find every possible way to force him to cancel his lease. Not only that, I also want him to pay back my losses. Does anyone think they can just take advantage of Xiao Xuejing however they please? Especially a piece of trash like him. If I let this slide and stay silent, word will spread that I'm easy to push around. Then everyone will start trying to profit off me. How could I ever hold my head up again? Xiao Zhan, you must handle this properly for me. If you succeed, consider it your chance to redeem yourself." Hearing these words, Xiao Zhan instantly straightened up. "Don't worry, Boss Xiao. I'll make sure you're satisfied." In truth, even without Xiao Xuejing's orders, Xiao Zhan had no intention of letting Guan Yunshui off easily. This bastard had nearly cost him his job. How could he possibly forgive him? A few days later, Guan Yunshui and Lin Bing arrived at the office building with potential tenants they had found, preparing to show them the space. When they reached room 1109, they discovered the door wouldn't open. Lin Bing inspected it closely and realized the lock cylinder had been replaced. Guan Yunshui immediately went to the property management office and confronted Xiao Zhen. Xiao Zhen spoke calmly. "Oh, Mr. Guan, here's what happened. The lock on room 1109 was left behind by the previous tenant. For security reasons, we've replaced it." Guan Yunshui held out his hand. "Then give me the key." Xiao Zhen shook his head. "Not so fast. First, I'll need you to pay the full 10 years rent up front." Guan Yunshui froze in shock. "What? 10 years rent? Office rents are usually paid monthly. Why do I suddenly have to pay 10 years all at once?" Xiao Zhen nodded solemnly. "Because you wrote your lease term as 10 years. Our company policy states that leases within 5 years may be paid monthly. Those between 5 and 10 years require payment every 3 months. And for lease terms of 10 years or longer, the entire rent must be paid in full upon signing." Guan Yunshui's face darkened. "What kind of ridiculous rule is this? Who's ever heard of such a thing in the world?" Xiao Zhen sneered coldly. "I'm sorry, but it's company policy. I can't make exceptions. Besides, wasn't it you who filled out the lease term yourself?" Guan Yunshui was speechless. Chapter 149, Swallowing the Bitter Pill. "The lease term was filled out by you yourself, which means everything was voluntary on your part. The reason our company has this rule is precisely to prevent tenants from defaulting on payments. After all, we're running a business here. We can't afford to operate at a loss, right?" Xiao Zhen chuckled. Upon hearing this, Guan Yunshui couldn't help but regret deeply. If he had known about such a ridiculous rule, he would never have written 10 years under any circumstances. He had originally thought he was getting the better end of the deal, only to be blindsided by this unexpected clause. Even if the office rent was cheap, it still amounted to over 10,000 per year. Paying for 10 years up front meant more than 1 million yuan in total. How could Guan Yunshui possibly come up with such a sum all at once? Seeing Guan remain silent, Xiao Zhen turned his gaze to the new tenant they had brought along. He scrutinized the man briefly before asking, "Are you with them? I didn't see you when they signed the contract the other day." The man replied, "Oh, I'm not with them. Boss Guan is subletting this office to me, so I came to check the place out. If I like it, I'll take it." Xiao Zhen shook his head. "Then I'm sorry, but our company policy strictly prohibits subletting any office units in this building. If you rent from them, it would be a breach of contract, and compensation will be required." Hearing this, the man's face changed instantly. "What? Compensation too?" He glared angrily at Guan Yunshui. "You didn't even clarify the situation before rushing to sublet. You've wasted my time and made me come here for nothing." With that, the man stormed off in frustration. Guan Yunshui tried to call him back, but the man wouldn't listen. Lin Bing stared furiously at Xiao Zhen. "Manager Xiao, why didn't you mention these rules when we paid the deposit? Now that we're trying to sublet, suddenly this isn't allowed and that isn't allowed. What kind of game are you playing?" Xiao Zhen shrugged. "Originally, I planned to formally notify you in writing after you officially moved in. But who knew you'd be in such a rush? You'd already found a subtenant. Enough talk. Just hurry up and pay the full 10-year rent. According to company policy, failure to pay on time renders the lease void." Guan Yunshui's eyes nearly bulged out. "What? Void? You can't just cancel a contract like that. It's clearly written on paper, black and white. If you cancel it arbitrarily, I can sue you for breach of contract." Xiao Zhen remained indifferent. "Go ahead and sue then. The company policy stands, and every single tenant in this building follows it." Guan Yunshui was left speechless. Truthfully, the threat of going to court was just empty words. Did he really intend to litigate? After all, Xiao Zhen was backed by Xiao Xuejin, a powerful figure with connections. Even if the case went to court, Guan knew he wouldn't stand a chance. Worse yet, he might end up losing both the money and the case, suffering huge losses. But if he actually had to pay the million yuan 10-year rent, he simply didn't have that kind of cash on hand. Most of Shifei Industrial's funds were tied up in operations, with little liquid capital available. Despite his net worth being tens of millions, those were mostly fixed assets. His actual available funds were limited. Otherwise, he wouldn't have faced a cash flow crisis during the previous customer compensation incident. If he paid over $1 million now, his company wouldn't have enough working capital to operate. Last time, he got lucky. Long Wanqing stepped in with investment at the last moment. If another financial crisis hit, he might not be so fortunate again. Now caught between a rock and a hard place, Guan Yunshui realized he had no good options. If he refused to pay, the lease would be voided, and the several 10,000 yuan deposit he'd already paid would be completely lost. Yet if he wanted to keep the contract valid, he'd have to pay over $1 million. And since subletting wasn't allowed, the office would be useless to him anyway. That $1 million would essentially vanish into thin air. After weighing his choices repeatedly, Guan finally decided to swallow his pride and abandon the lease. Losing a few 10,000 yuan was still better than throwing away over $1 million for nothing. He had thought he was grabbing a great bargain, only to end up losing more than he gained, failing to make easy money and instead losing several 10,000 yuan in deposits. "You win." Guan Yunshui spat bitterly, then turned and walked away with Lin Bing. Once outside the building, the more Guan thought about it, the more infuriated and humiliated he felt. In a burst of anger, he punched the nearby utility pole. But because he struck too hard, searing pain shot through his fingers as if they were being torn apart. His face twisted in agony as he clutched his hand and hopped on one foot. Lin Bing quickly rushed over. "Brother-in-law, are you okay? Come on, why torture yourself like this?" Guan Yunshui gritted his teeth and said, "I'm so angry I could burst. That bastard Xiao Zhen played a dirty trick on me. Now I've lost tens of thousands of yuan for nothing. Thinking about it, Lin Bing also felt furious. He growled resentfully. Brother-in-law, why don't we sue him? We have the contract, solid evidence in hand. Guan Yunshui snapped at him. You fool, don't you know who Xiao Xuejin is? Besides, lawsuits aren't resolved in just 1 or 2 days. This is an economic dispute. If the other side files for asset freezing, can my company even continue operating? You don't know the first thing about this. Lin Bing mumbled quietly. They probably wouldn't freeze our assets, would they? How wouldn't they? Guan Yunshui roared. This involves 10 years' rent, an amount exceeding 1 million yuan. Without going into details, if they get the bank to freeze over 1 million in our working capital before the case concludes, what am I supposed to do? With no funds for company operations, do you expect me to go begging for investments again? I've had enough of running around like a beggar last time. Seeing Guan Yunshui's rage, Lin Bing quickly shut up and didn't dare say another word. In the end, the two could only leave in frustration. Feng Shua, having settled the office space issue, instructed Hu Yurin and Qian Lai to find a design firm to renovate the office. Hu Yurin and Qian Lai had wide networks and many connections, so entrusting them was definitely the right choice. Sure enough, within a few days, Qian Lai found a reliable design company. After reviewing several proposals, Feng Shua and the others discussed and selected one. Office renovation differed from residential decoration and didn't require long construction time, usually completed within a month or so. As for office furniture, Qian Lai had already arranged reservations through contacts. After all, he ran a supermarket business. Such supply channels were plentiful. Now everything was ready except the final piece. Waiting for Chundayo's Phase 2 housing project to finish construction and deliver the units, after which they'd flip the properties and secure the funds. Just as Feng Shua was busily preparing the new office, he suddenly received a call from Lin Feng. On the phone, he learned that Lin Guoxiong had contracted a terminal illness in prison and passed away a few days ago. Lin Feng called to invite him to attend Lin Guoxiong's funeral. After all, they had been father-in-law and son-in-law, and Lin Guoxiong was Guoguo's maternal grandfather. Chapter 150, Attending the Funeral. When Feng Shua heard the news of Lin Guoxiong's passing, he froze in shock. In his previous life, Lin Guoxiong had indeed run into trouble, but he hadn't suffered from a terminal illness, nor had he died so early. It seemed that although many things in this lifetime followed a similar trajectory, the details had diverged significantly. These differences were, undoubtedly, due to the presence of Feng Shua himself. While numerous events had changed, the overall course of fate remained unaltered. Lin Guoxiong had been unkind during his lifetime, constantly belittling Feng Shua. But still, the dead deserved respect. Once someone was gone, grudges should naturally be let go. When is the funeral? I'll come and pay my respects with some incense. I won't bring guagua, though. It's not appropriate for a child to attend such a place, Feng Shua said. Thank you, Lin Feng replied quietly. She gave him the exact time, then hung up without further words. 2 days later, Lin Guoxiong's memorial service was held at the funeral home. Dressed in a black suit, Feng Shua attended. Though Lin Guoxiong had countless friends in life, only a handful showed up for his funeral. Ever since his downfall, all his so-called friends had vanished like smoke, disappearing without a trace. Even Zhou Ping, Lin Feng, and others were now treated like plague carriers, avoided by everyone around them. Feng Shua glanced at the few distant relatives from the Lin family who had bothered to come. Though they were present, their expressions still carried subtle looks of disdain. Yet among them, Feng Shua noticed neither Lin Bing nor Guan Yunshui. Guan Yunshui was an outsider. His absence was understandable. But Lin Bing, Lin Guoxiong's own son, failing to show up at his father's memorial, that was outrageous. Seeing Feng Shua arrive, Lin Feng came over and said, I'm truly grateful you came. I know my dad never liked you much. If you hadn't come, I wouldn't have blamed you. Feng Shua replied calmly, he's gone now. What's past is past. He glanced around and asked, where's your brother? Wasn't your dad especially fond of him? How can he not show up when his own father has passed away? At the mention of Lin Bing, Lin Feng's expression grew uneasy. She forced a weak smile. Lin Bing, he's just busy. Probably can't make it. Feng Shua frowned. Can't make it? I ran into him recently. He was with Guan Yunshui. Didn't seem particularly busy to me. Guan Yunshui's an outsider. I get why he wouldn't come. But Lin Bing not showing up? That's going too far. Lin Feng sighed. It's a long story, but it's our family matter. You wouldn't understand. Anyway, it's not something pleasant to talk about. Let's leave it be. I should go greet the others. They're arriving soon. Please wait a moment. The memorial will start once it's time. Feng Shua nodded. Go ahead. No need to attend to me. With that, Lin Feng turned and left, while Feng Shua moved to an isolated corner to quietly wait for the memorial service to begin. Just then, a voice called out, Bro-in-law. Oh no, I mean Brother Feng. Feng Shua turned to see Shi Xiaomei approaching. Her demeanor looked frail, and Feng Shua immediately noticed the bruising on her face. Despite the thick foundation and concealer she had applied, the bruises were still faintly visible. Xiaomei, what happened to your face? Feng Shua asked, frowning. Shi Xiaomei hesitated, then quickly forced a smile. Oh, I accidentally bumped into something. It's nothing. I'm really glad you came to my father-in-law's funeral. It means a lot. I thought he had good relationships. I expected more people to come. But look, barely anyone showed up. Since you're practically family, having you here makes me feel much safer. Feng Shua understood exactly what she meant. With neither Lin Bing nor Guan Yunshui present, the only Lin family members here were the 3 women, Zhou Ping, Lin Feng, and Shi Xiaomei. Without a single man to hold things together, it would be difficult to manage the situation. Should anything unexpected happen, what could these 3 women possibly do? The bruises on Xiaomei's face were clearly from Lin Bing beating her. It seemed that his affair had finally been discovered. Whether in his previous life or this one, Lin Bing had always been a complete bastard. Caught cheating by his wife, instead of feeling remorse, he responded with violence. In the previous life, Xiaomei had eventually taken her own life, unable to endure the abuse any longer. Looking at this kind, gentle woman before him, Feng Shuo couldn't help but warn her gently. Xiaomei, you don't need to hide it from me. I know Lin Bing hit you. Everyone says don't encourage divorce, urge reconciliation, but I'm telling you, if you really can't live with him anymore, then leave. Living with someone like that is torture, for you and for your child. You wouldn't want Duo to grow up turning into someone just like his father, would you? Besides, there's one more thing. Life is precious. Never choose to give up easily. No matter how hard it gets, you have to keep going. Sure, Xiaomei was stunned by his words, but quickly a look of gratitude appeared on her face. Though she didn't fully understand the meaning behind Feng Shua's last sentence, she clearly understood the first part. She nodded and said, "Thank you, Brother Feng. I'll remember what you've said." Just as she finished speaking, a staff member came out and announced loudly, "Everyone, it's almost time. The memorial service for Mr. Lin Guoxiong will now begin." As he spoke, Lin Guoxiong's coffin was wheeled out. Everyone gathered around and lined up in several rows. Seeing Lin Guoxiong, now separated from them by life and death, Zhou Ping was overwhelmed with grief and burst into tears. Her crying triggered Lin Feng and Shi Xiaomei, who also began weeping uncontrollably. In an instant, the entire hall was filled with sorrow. Feng Shuo, standing amidst this scene, couldn't help but feel a sense of melancholy. For all Lin Guoxiong's arrogance and pride in life, in death, he was no different from anyone else. No matter how powerful or wealthy you were in life, everything vanished once you died. To be honest, Zhou Ping had indeed been harsh and petty before, but at this moment, she was nothing more than a pitiful woman. Even Feng Shuo felt a tinge of sympathy for her. Yet, just as the atmosphere was steeped in grief, a jarring voice suddenly rang out from outside. Hold on. Wait. Who gave you permission to hold this memorial? We haven't settled things yet. Nobody's touching the old man's body." Everyone turned toward the sound, only to see Lin Bing charging in with a group of people behind him, looking furious and aggressive. The moment he entered, he waved his hand sharply, and his men immediately surrounded Lin Guoxiong's coffin, shoving aside the staff members who were conducting the ceremony. Lin Feng's face turned pale upon seeing this. She pointed a trembling finger at Lin Bing and stammered, "Why you? What are you trying to do again?" Lin Bing glared at them with bitter hatred and snarled, "You know exactly what I'm here for. All the old man's inheritance must go entirely to me. Not a single cent will you get. Every penny in his bank accounts, over 100,000. And this house too. They're all mine." Chapter 151, Shameless. The other relatives who had come to attend the memorial service, seeing this unfold, were so frightened that they all retreated backward. Zhou Ping suppressed her grief and pointed at Lin Bing, shouting, You ungrateful son. Your father has barely passed away, his body hasn't even cooled, and you're already here fighting over his inheritance. How much money did you spend while he was still alive? We should have been living comfortably, but because of you, this good-for-nothing wastrel, our monthly expenses were enormous. We never managed to save a single cent. He left behind barely over 100,000 yuan. I still need to handle his funeral arrangements and buy a burial plot. After all those expenses, how much will be left? And don't even get me started on the house. Don't think I don't know what you're planning. You want to sell it. If you sell the house, where are you going to put me, your sister, and your own wife and child? Are we supposed to sleep on the streets? Lin Bing wore a shameless expression as he coldly replied, "Stop nagging. Spend a few thousand yuan, hold a simple memorial service, and call it a day. The old man's dead. What does he need a tomb for? In my opinion, just scatter his ashes somewhere. Saves us the trouble of visiting graves during Qingming festival. And yes, about the house. You're right, I am selling it. Housing prices have gone up. While the market's hot, I'll turn the house into cash and invest it in my brother-in-law's company. My brother-in-law already promised me, if I invest, he'll make me a shareholder. At year-end, the dividends will be substantial." Before Lin Bing could finish, Lin Feng snapped, "Shut up. Lin Bing, do you have any shame at all? I've already broken up with Guan Yunshui, yet you still have the nerve to keep calling him brother-in-law? You know exactly how Guan Yunshui treated me. As my own younger brother, how can you side with him? How am I supposed to face you ever again?" Lin Bing sneered. "What man doesn't play around? What he did isn't even worth mentioning. He only made the same mistake every man in the world makes. You're the one being unnecessarily righteous. A little anger, a few arguments, that's fine. But why actually break up with him? He's the boss of a company. If you'd stayed married, you'd be the boss's wife. Now that you've split up, you won't get a single cent." Lin Feng roared back, "Money, money, money. Is that all you think about? You're causing a scene at your father's memorial service for money. You'd throw away your dignity, crawl after Guan Yunshui, just for money." Lin Bing shrugged. "You're right. I love money. Dignity? What's dignity worth anyway? If giving it up makes me rich, what use do I have for it?" He waved his hand. "Enough talk. Sign the waiver of inheritance rights right now. I'm taking every penny in the house too. Otherwise, I'll make sure this memorial service ends before it even begins." Zhou Ping trembled in rage. She never imagined that her most beloved son would turn out to be such a monster. She raised a trembling finger at Lin Bing, wanting to speak, but no words came out. Seeing this, Shi Xiaomei quickly stepped forward to support Zhou Ping. Glaring furiously at Lin Bing, she said, "That's enough. Look at what you've done to Mom. Dad is already gone. Do you really want to kill Mom with grief too?" Lin Bing looked disgusted. Shut the hell up, peasant. You've got no right to speak here. I've been sick of you for ages. Deal with your own damn business first. Sign the divorce papers. Shi Xiaomei's shoulders quivered, overwhelmed by sorrow and fury. Not long ago, she had accidentally discovered that Lin Bing was having an affair with another woman and confronted him about it. To her shock, not only did he show no remorse, but he physically assaulted her and shoved a divorce agreement into her hands, demanding she sign it. She had completely lost hope in him. Yet she held on, refusing the divorce, for the sake of their young son, and because if they split, Zhou Ping would be left alone, an elderly woman with no one to care for her. She never thought Lin Bing would stoop so low, to cause a scene at his own father's funeral and force Zhou Ping and Lin Fong to sign away their inheritance rights. Lin Bing seemed to have run out of patience. Seeing that neither Zhou Ping nor Lin Fong would write the statement, he nodded coldly. Fine, none of you want to sign? Alright then, if you show me no mercy, don't expect me to show any either. He turned around and waved his hand. Brothers, carry the old man out. I'm dumping this coffin straight into the Binjiang River. Let's see what you do then. The men Lin Bing brought let out a loud cheer, then lifted the coffin and began marching toward the door. Zhou Ping rushed forward desperately, blocking their way. But she was just one elderly woman, frail and weak. How could she possibly stop these strong, young men? The man in front casually shoved her aside, sending her crashing to the ground. Lin Fong and Shi Xiaomei hurried forward and helped her up. Zhou Ping watched helplessly as Lin Guoxiong's coffin was carried away, her heart filled with despair. She cried out in agony. Heaven, what sin have I committed to suffer such a heartless monster? Hearing this, Lin Fong and Shi Xiaomei silently shed tears. Though they were filled with hatred, they were powerless. There was nothing they could do but watch as Lin Bing took away Lin Guoxiong's coffin. Just then, Fang Shuo stepped forward and blocked Lin Bing's path. I'll say this only once, Fang Shuo said coldly. Put the coffin back and get the hell out. Originally, he had no intention of getting involved. He and Lin Fong were already through. This was a family matter, and as an outsider, it wasn't his place to interfere. But Lin Bing's actions had gone too far, so outrageous that even heaven and earth would be enraged. Besides, Lin Fong was Guoguo's biological mother, and Zhou Ping was Guoguo's grandmother. No matter how you looked at it, they still had a connection. Regardless of the reasons, Fang Shuo felt he couldn't just stand by and do nothing. So he stepped forward and stood in front of Lin Bing and his men. Lin Bing looked at Fang Shuo and sneered. You Fang people, this is our Lin family's business. What right does an outsider like you have to meddle? It's like a dog catching mice, sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. Fang Shuo replied calmly. First, Lin Fong is my ex-wife and the biological mother of my daughter. So strictly speaking, I'm not an outsider. Second, what you're doing is worse than any animal's behavior. Any decent person would find it unbearable. Anyone with even a shred of conscience wouldn't act like you. Your father loved you the most while he was alive. He even hurt his own daughter just so you could live comfortably. But now, the moment he's gone, you can't wait to fight over his inheritance. You even want to dump his coffin into the Binjiang River, refusing him peace and death. Tell me, is there anywhere on earth a son as shameless as you? Even if I raised a dog, it would understand loyalty better than you. Lin Bing turned pale with rage, his face shifting between green and white. Enraged, he shouted. Who the hell do you think you are? You've got no right to speak here. Get lost now, or I won't go easy on you. Fang Shuo glanced at him, said nothing more, took out his phone, and dialed the police. Hello, is this the police station? There's a disturbance here, someone causing trouble. Please send officers immediately. Chapter 152, Stepping in to Help. When Lin Bing heard that Fang Shuo had actually called the police, he immediately panicked. The reason he dared to bring people here to cause trouble was because he knew the Lin family consisted only of women. No one would dare to call the authorities. But he never expected Fang Shuo to show up and block his way. Lin Bing himself was in the wrong. Bringing so many people to disrupt a memorial service clearly constituted provocation and disorderly conduct. If the officers arrived, he would certainly be taken away. He bluffed with a fierce tone. You little bastard, you actually dared to call the cops. Fang Shuo put down the phone and said coolly. You have two choices now. Either put the coffin back where it belongs and leave, or wait for the police to come and take all of you in. Lin Bing and the group he brought were stunned. They became visibly flustered and instinctively started backing away. After a tense standoff, Lin Bing finally had no choice but to order his men to return the coffin to its original place, then left sullenly. Before departing, he glared venomously at Fang Shuo. You've got guts, kid. We'll see about this later. Once Lin Bing and his men were gone, Lin Fong and the other two women finally breathed a sigh of relief. At that moment, Lin Fong felt deeply moved. In their most desperate hour, it was Fang Shuo who stepped forward and resolved the crisis. Recalling the past, she realized that Fang Shuo had always treated her well. Yet she had chosen to divorce him and run off with such a scoundrel as Guan Yunshui. If only she hadn't taken that path back then, perhaps everything would be different today. Shi Xiaomei stepped forward and bowed deeply to Fang Shuo. Fang Gu, thank you so much. Our family has suffered this disgrace, but fortunately you were here. Fang Shuo gave a faint smile. It's nothing. I just did what needed to be done. Still, Lin Bing won't let this go easily. You'll need to figure out how to protect yourselves moving forward. But let's not dwell on it now. Let's finish the memorial service first. After the disturbance caused by Lin Bing, everyone had lost their composure. After a few perfunctory remarks, the funeral ended hastily. Lin Guoxiong's body was then wheeled away for cremation. Following the memorial, there was supposed to be a banquet. Fang Shuo had only come out of moral obligation to send Lin Guoxiong off on his final journey, and had no intention of staying for the meal. So after bidding farewell to Lin Fong, he prepared to leave. Seeing him about to go, Lin Fong quickly called out, "Fong Shuo, wait a moment. There are a few words I'd like to say to you." Fong Shuo nodded. "All right, go ahead." Lin Fong pointed to a quiet spot nearby. "Let's talk over there." After they walked over, she said, "I want to ask you a favor. Help me find a lawyer. As you saw just now, Lin Bing is trying to seize my father's inheritance and house. I don't care much about the inheritance, but the house is our only home. If Lin Bing takes it, I can manage, but what about Mom? And what about Xiaomei? She's raising a child alone, has no job. How is she supposed to survive? You know many people and have wide connections. I'm hoping you could help me find a lawyer who might assist us. I suspect we'll end up in court with Lin Bing, so I'd like to consult someone first." Fong Shuo replied coldly, "For something like this, you should go to a legal aid center. Why come to me? To be honest, I didn't want to get involved when Lin Bing disrupted the funeral. But seeing how pitiful Xiaomei is, I stepped in. Don't forget the harm your family caused me. I'm not so forgiving as to simply erase that from memory." Lin Fong looked pained. "I know. It was me. It was our family who wronged you. But I'm still your ex-wife. I'm Guoguo's biological mother. Can you really bear to watch me being bullied like this? Are you truly so heartless?" Fong Shuo shrugged. "Sorry, this is your family matter. As an outsider, I shouldn't interfere. You'll have to figure it out yourself. I can't help." With that, he turned to leave. Suddenly, Lin Fong called out, "Fong Shuo, can't you at least have some mercy? Can't you feel sorry for Xiaomei? She's truly pitiful. Lin Bing has another woman outside and frequently beats and berates her. If the house is taken, how will she and her child survive?" At those words, Fong Shuo stopped in his tracks. Sure, Xiaomei truly was a pitiful woman. And within this entire family, she was the only one who had ever treated him with genuine kindness. For her sake, if for no one else's, he ought to help. "Fine," Fong Shuo said. "I'll make a call later and see what I can find." Hearing this, Lin Fong felt a bitter pang in her heart. As his ex-wife, as Guoguo's mother, she had humbled herself before him like this, but he remained unmoved. Only when Sure Xiaomei was brought into the picture did he reluctantly agree. It seemed Fong Shuo truly hated her whole family. The pain they had inflicted upon him had been too deep. "Thank you," Lin Fong said quietly, then turned and walked away. Fong Shuo took out his phone and called Qian Lai, asking him to help find a lawyer who specialized in inheritance cases. Qian Lai had all sorts of connections and knew people from every walk of life. Within 10 minutes, Qian Lai replied with the information. The lawyer had already been found, and the contact details were sent to Fong Shuo. He forwarded the message directly to Lin Fong, letting her get in touch with the lawyer herself. Fong Shuo checked the time and prepared to leave. He planned to stop by the office to check on the renovation progress. Although office Dansho didn't require constant supervision like a home renovation, he still needed to keep an eye on things now and then. Just as he was heading out, he suddenly heard someone calling from behind. "Mr. Fong. Mr. Fong, is that you?" Fong Shuo stopped and turned around. A young girl carrying a violin case taller than herself was running toward him. With her were several other men and women, all roughly the same age. "Mr. Fong, I never expected we'd run into each other here." The young girl panted heavily when she reached him, possibly from running so fast, or perhaps because the case was so heavy. Fong Shuo looked closely and immediately recognized her. She was the girl who played the cello at the French restaurant. He remembered her name was Zhou Qiqin. "Miss Zhou, what a coincidence." Fong Shuo nodded slightly. "I'm here for a relative's funeral. What about you?" Zhou Qiqin smiled. "I'm here for work." Fong Shuo instantly understood. During memorial services at the funeral home, mournful music was usually played through recordings. But there were exceptions. Wealthy families, wanting to display their status and extravagance, would sometimes hire live musicians. Zhou Qiqin must have been invited to perform live. And given the cello's deep, solemn tone, it was perfectly suited for such an occasion. As they spoke, her companions also approached. Smiling, Zhou Qiqin said, "Come, let me introduce everyone. This is Mr. Fong, the master I told you about." Fong Shuo chuckled modestly. "Master? That's going too far. At most, I'm just an amateur." Zhou Qiqin shook her head. "Don't be so humble. Your skill truly deserves the title of master. Maybe even better than my professor." Before Fong Shuo could respond, a handsome young man standing beside Zhou Qiqin said, "Qiqin, is he really as amazing as you say? You've praised him so much I'm actually curious to see for myself." Fong Shuo turned to the young man, who extended his hand. "Hi, I'm Qiqin's boyfriend. My name is Luo Qiong." Chapter 153. Same name, same surname. Fong Shuo was momentarily stunned upon hearing the name and couldn't help but take a few extra glances at the young man. It wasn't that there was anything particularly special about this youth. It was mainly because of his name. In his previous life, Fong Shuo's second wife was also named Luo Qiong. The coincidence of sharing the exact same name was too striking, which is why Fong Shuo couldn't help but look at him more closely. "Hello, Mr. Luo, pleasure to meet you," Fong Shuo said as he extended his hand and shook the other man's. However, the moment their hands touched, Fong Shuo frowned slightly. Though Luo Qiong appeared cheerful on the surface, he secretly exerted force, squeezing Fong Shuo's hand tightly. Fortunately, Fong Shuo had been exercising regularly for years and possessed considerable hand strength. Anyone else would have cried out in pain by now. Seeing no reaction from Fong Shuo, surprise flickered across Luo Qiong's eyes. But in the next instant, he suddenly contorted his face in apparent agony, shouting, "Ow, ow, ow. Mr. Fong, let go. Let go quickly." As he spoke, he yanked his hand back forcefully, then frantically rubbed it until the back of his hand turned red. Fong Shuo watched him impassively, inwardly sneering. During their handshake, it was Luo Qiong who had tried to assert dominance through hidden strength. Fang Shuo hadn't applied any pressure at all. Yet this young man now feigned unbearable pain and exaggeratedly rubbed his hand. He deliberately rubbed the back of his hand raw, hoping bystanders unaware of the truth would mistakenly believe Fang Shuo had maliciously crushed his hand. Though Fang Shuo didn't yet understand why Luo Qiong would do such a thing, one thing was clear: the kid was deliberately targeting him. At Luo Qiong's cry of pain, the group of young men and women around him quickly rushed forward to check on him. Once they confirmed Luo Qiong seemed unharmed, they glared angrily at Fang Shuo. Zhou Qiqin also frowned and said, "Mr. Fang, what exactly was that for?" Fang Shuo knew very well that even if he denied or explained, no one would believe him. So instead, he simply smiled faintly and said, "Nothing serious, just a little joke between adults. I hope you won't take it too seriously." Immediately after, a young woman snapped loudly, "A joke? You've hurt his hand like this and still call it a joke? Luo Qiong is our most talented cellist. What if your actions ruin his ability to play? How would he ever perform again?" Fang Shuo nodded calmly. "If that's the case, then how about we go to the hospital? We can get it checked, see if there's any tendon or bone damage. Don't worry, I'll cover all expenses." Hearing the suggestion of going to the hospital, panic flashed briefly in Luo Qiong's eyes. He waved his hands hurriedly and said, No, I'm fine. Mr. Fang, please don't make jokes like that again. If my hand really gets damaged, my entire future will be ruined." Fang Shuo smiled lightly, offering no further comment. Then he turned to Zhou Qiqin and said, "Miss Zhou, I won't bother you any longer. I'll be on my way now. Until we meet again." With that, he walked away. Although Fang Shuo felt somewhat annoyed at being falsely accused for no reason, he didn't dwell on it. After all, they lived in different worlds and were unlikely to cross paths again. Besides, these people were probably still students. It wasn't worth it for Fang Shuo to hold grudges against a bunch of kids. Watching him leave, a smug look flickered in Luo Qiong's eyes. Then, turning serious, he said to Zhou Qiqin, "Qiqin, you'd better stay away from people like him in the future. This Fang fellow may seem refined on the outside, but he's full of deceit inside. You're too naive. The outside world is dangerous. You shouldn't trust others so easily. And that French restaurant where you work, don't go there anymore either. I'm afraid you'll end up being taken advantage of." Zhou Qiqin shook her head. "It's okay. The manager at the restaurant has been quite kind to me. Besides, if I don't work, how can I afford my tuition? Right now, I only want to finish my studies as soon as possible and live up to my father's expectations." As she spoke, she instinctively touched the case of her cello. This cello, passed down from her late father, Jacques, was a precious heirloom. Her father had been a moderately renowned cellist whose greatest dream was to see Zhou Qiqin step onto the highest international stage of music and perform before the entire world. Luo Qiong's eyes softened with unmistakable affection as he said gently, "Qiqin, do you know what I find most captivating about you? It's your perseverance and pursuit of your dreams. Don't worry, I'll always be here by your side, helping you fulfill them." Zhou Qiqin smiled and gave a soft nod. Amid playful teasing from the group, they, too, departed. By dismissal time, Fang Shuo picked up Guoguo and brought her home. He had thought about it for a long while, but ultimately decided to tell her the news of Lin Guoxiong's passing. After all, Guoguo wasn't a child anymore. She deserved to know certain truths. He had expected her not to be too saddened, since her grandfather had never treated her well during his lifetime. In comparison, Lin Guoxiong had favored his grandson Duo far more. To his surprise, when Guoguo heard that Lin Guoxiong had passed away, she immediately became gloomy and saddened. Fang Shuo hadn't expected her to feel this way and couldn't help but feel a pang of heartache. He quickly comforted her. "Guoguo, don't be sad. Everyone has their time to go. Although Grandpa is gone, maybe he's off enjoying himself in another world. Still, I'm a bit surprised you're upset. Your grandpa wasn't kind to either of us. Why do you feel sad now that he's gone?" Guoguo sighed softly. "Even though Grandpa was harsh with me, he was still my grandfather. When I was in kindergarten, my teacher always said, your dad's dad is Yi, and your mom's dad is Lao Yi. Lao Yi is Mom's father. Now that he's gone, Mom must be sad. Just thinking about how sad Mom must feel makes me sad too." Fang Shuo gently patted Guoguo's little head, his face filled with warmth and pride. Truly his own daughter, his genes at work. She was emotional and deeply caring, just like him. 2 weeks after Lin Guoxiong's funeral, Fang Shuo's office was finally renovated and completed. Having finally established their own company and secured their own office space, Fang Shuo couldn't help but feel a deep sense of emotion. Reborn into this life, having weathered so many storms and hardships, he had once again built his own company from the ground up. As the saying goes, every journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and this was the very first step toward Fang Shuo's grand ambitions. He called all company members together, preparing to hold a board meeting. Everyone had gathered and he was about to begin, when unexpectedly, Xiao Xuejin arrived at the door. "Mr. Fang, I heard your office renovation is complete, so I came by to see if there's anything else you might need. If there's anything I can help with, just let me know. If you can't find me, you can ask Xiao Zhen, he's just as reliable," Xiao Xuejin said with a chuckle. Fang Shuo nodded. "I appreciate it. The reason I came today isn't just to check in. There's also something I'd like to discuss with you," Xiao Xuejin said. Fang Shuo asked, "What would you like to discuss?" "Well, here's the thing. I'm planning to develop a residential project in the West District. The land approval has already come through, and next we'll start arranging for the current residents to relocate. But I've hit a snag. There's one food stall on the property that refuses to let me touch it." Chapter 154, Underground Fault. Fang Shuo said with some surprise. They're refusing to move? Is it because your compensation isn't enough? Or is there some other reason? Xiao Xuejin sighed helplessly. The relocation compensation I offered is the highest in the entire city. If they're still not satisfied with that, then I really don't know what else to do. But honestly, it's not about money. The main issue is that building belongs to the Grain Bureau's tertiary industry project. Fang Shuo was momentarily stunned. The Grain Bureau's tertiary industry? Yes, Xiao Xuejin confirmed. It's a catering shop funded and established by the Grain Bureau itself. All profits go directly toward employee subsidies. Because of this background, I can't just relocate them arbitrarily. Mr. Fang, I heard you have connections with people at the Grain Bureau. Could I trouble you to find out who's in charge of this restaurant? Once I locate the person responsible, I can negotiate the demolition directly with them. Fang Shuo quickly ran through the possibilities in his mind. The only person he knew at the Grain Bureau was Wang Yuanhang. It wouldn't be appropriate to ask him about something like this. Maybe he could have Hu Yuran make inquiries. He knew plenty of people over there. Under normal circumstances, Fang Shuo might not bother helping someone else. But for Xiao Xuejin, he felt obliged. After all, the man had given him an extremely low rent and treated him with great respect. Out of sheer gratitude, he needed to return the favor. Just as Fang Shuo was about to speak up, he suddenly remembered something. He turned to Xiao Xuejin and asked carefully, Director Xiao, you mentioned earlier that you're developing property. Where exactly is this project located? In the West City District. Xiao replied. Fang Shuo pressed further. Is it on the land in Luojiazhai, West City District? Xiao Xuejin looked surprised. Yes, exactly that plot. How did you know, Mr. Fang? He had only just received the official approval documents for the land. Nothing had even begun yet. Aside from a handful of insiders, no one else should possibly know about this project. Yet Fang Shuo had accurately named the location. That was astonishing. At that moment, Xiao became even more convinced that Fang must have some powerful connections. Otherwise, how could he possibly know such a confidential detail? After receiving confirmation, Fang Shuo fell into deep silence. In his previous life, he once saw a news report mentioning a major collapse incident at Luojiazhai in the West City District. The cause was traced back to an underground geological fault. The houses there happened to be built directly atop it. At first, nobody noticed anything unusual. Only after the collapse occurred did geologists conduct surveys and discover the truth. If Xiao Xuejin proceeded to develop residential buildings at Luojiazhai now, the structures might collapse before they were even completed. Wouldn't that leave him utterly ruined financially? Although Fang Shuo hadn't interacted much with Xiao Xuejin, he could clearly sense the man's attempt to curry favor with him. He didn't know why, but he genuinely liked Xiao. Moreover, leasing office space at several times below market price was an enormous favor. Fang simply couldn't stand by and watch Xiao lose everything he owned. So he cautiously warned, Director Xiao, there's something I'm not sure whether I should say. Xiao smiled. Mr. Fang, please don't be so formal. Say whatever's on your mind. I've read several books on geology before. They mentioned that Jiangzhou lies in an area formed by marine sedimentation against the mainland. Such plains often contain hidden underground faults. There have been recorded cases of subsurface faults in Jiangzhou. And historically, dating back to written records, no building taller than 3 stories has ever existed in the West City District. So I wonder, could it be sitting precisely on top of a fault line? Of course, this is purely speculative. I can't confirm anything for certain. But if you plan to build here, I think you should conduct a thorough on-site geological survey first. If there really is a fault, any building you construct would eventually collapse. Wouldn't that bankrupt you completely? When saying this, Fang Shuo had already softened his words as much as possible. Still, the message came across rather harshly. And understandably so. How could anyone feel good hearing someone predict collapse and fault lines before construction had even started? To make baseless claims like that seemed like inviting misfortune. Fang Shuo understood this perfectly well. Yet driven by genuine concern, he chose to phrase it as gently as he could. But surprisingly, instead of getting angry, Xiao Xuejin felt a sudden chill run through him. He had always assumed Fang Shuo possessed strong political backing or powerful patrons. Therefore, perhaps Fang really did know secrets others didn't. The possibility of an underground fault might actually be insider knowledge. Otherwise, why would Fang randomly bring this up without reason? Xiao Xuejin believed Fang Shuo was giving him some kind of hint, unable to speak plainly for certain reasons, so he could only warn him in this indirect way. After a moment of silent contemplation, Xiao Xuejin's expression turned serious. He nodded and said, Mr. Fang, what you've said is something I really must take seriously. Building houses isn't a joke. We should definitely bring in geologists to conduct an on-site survey first. Regardless of the final outcome, I truly appreciate your input. Your warning comes from good intentions, and it's safer for me to verify this before breaking ground. Alright, I won't say any more. I'll go find experts immediately and have the geological conditions at Luojiazhai checked out right away. With those words, Xiao Xuejin hurried off in a rush to find geological specialists. He fully believed every word Fang Shuo had said, which was why he was so anxious. If he invested all his money first, and only later discovered problems, it would be too late to regret. Xiao Xuejin indeed had strong connections. Not long after, he managed to bring in a nationally renowned geological expert, a man who wasn't based in Jiangzhou but all the way in the capital city. It took considerable effort and many favors, but eventually, he persuaded the expert to come to Jiangzhou and inspect the site at Luojiazhai. Meanwhile, in a dark alley within Luojiazhai, several burly men stood over a young man barely 20 years old, keeping him pinned to the ground under their feet. A man with dyed blonde hair and a fierce appearance stared coldly down at the youth. Luo Qiong, Trying to play hide and seek with me? Why didn't you reply when I messaged you? This young man was none other than Luo Qiong, Zhou Qiqin's boyfriend. His face was pressed flat against the dirt, trampled underfoot, yet he dared not show even a hint of resistance. Struggling, Luo Qiong forced a weak smile. Brother who? I just didn't see it, that's all. But even if I didn't reply, did you really have to come personally with your brothers? The man called brother who snapped sharply. Cut the crap. How long do you think I've been around in this world? Do you really think a little trick like that can fool someone like me? Enough. I don't have time to waste. Tell me, when will you get that girl's violin? Luo Qiong quickly replied. Brother who? Please give me a little more time. That violin was left to Zhou Qiqin by her father. She values it more than her own life. To get it, I need to wait for the right opportunity. Chapter 155. Time is running out. One whose face twisted with anger. Wait for another chance? How long have I already made you wait? Boy, my patience has limits. If you don't get me that violin soon, don't blame me for turning ruthless. Luo Qiong trembled all over and hastily stammered. Why yes, I'll find a way. I promise I'll find a way. I'm giving you 1 week. 1 week from now. Either come to me with that girl's violin, or come with your own hand. You'd better think carefully which path to take. With that, One Who waved his hand, and his men released their grip on Luo Qiong's feet. Luo Qiong scrambled to his feet immediately, still hunched over, not daring to wipe the dirt off his face. Suddenly, One Who broke into a smile. Walking up to Luo Qiong, he said, Kid, I heard your place is going to be demolished. Demolition compensation can make people rich these days. So you'd better hurry up and get me that violin. Then you'll still have a good life ahead. Besides, it's just one girl, right? Once your house gets demolished and the compensation money lands in your hands, how could you possibly lack women? As long as a man has money, women will throw themselves at him. Laughing heartily, One Who turned and left with his men. Luo Qiong waited until One Who and his gang had completely disappeared from sight before his expression darkened. He spat violently onto the ground and muttered viciously. "Pa, bastards, just try coming back now. I'd beat every single one of you to death myself." His current defiant posture stood in stark contrast to his earlier cowering fear. To an outsider, it might seem like he actually could take down a group of burly men all by himself. Though venting gave him temporary satisfaction, he still had to face reality. One Who and his crew were after Zhou Qiqin's javelin-cello. The instrument must be extremely valuable, otherwise they wouldn't go to such lengths. But no matter what Luo Qiong had tried, he couldn't figure out a way to get the cello. Zhou Qiqin treated the instrument as if it were her very life. She never let it out of her sight. Thus, despite racking his brain endlessly, Luo Qiong remained utterly clueless. Was he really considering taking it by force? Yet if he resorted to violence and Zhou Qiqin called the police, he would inevitably be caught. He stood there blankly, deep in thought for a long while, but ultimately came up empty. Finally, helplessly, he turned and walked away. No sooner had Luo Qiong left than Xiao Xuejin arrived at Luo's homestead with a team of experts to begin geological surveys. After warning Xiao Xuejin, Feng Shua had put the whole matter out of his mind. After all, he'd done what he could. Whether Xiao listened or not was beyond his control. Right now, he had far more important things on his plate, specifically, their upcoming key project. The real headache was how to resettle the villagers from that mountain village. According to the village chief, their ancestors had lived there since the Warring States period. Moreover, they were bound by ancestral teachings, making it nearly impossible to convince them to leave. But this didn't faze Feng Shua. He already had a solution. Rather than relocating all the villagers, why not let them stay? This way, they wouldn't violate tradition, and he would also have experienced locals to train newcomers. To properly resettle the villagers, they would need to construct a new residential plot adjacent to the mountain village. It would be a major project requiring significant investment. And this was what truly gave Feng Shua pause. Although he knew people in real estate, such as Chun Daiyou and Xiao Xuejin, he doubted they'd be willing to build housing plots in such a remote, impoverished area. It would definitely be thankless work, potentially resulting in financial losses. Unless they were also interested in joining the agricultural-based project, who would bother coming all this way just to build houses? If no investors stepped forward, even combining the funds of Feng Shua and his few partners probably wouldn't cover the cost of building the residential plot. Not to mention, aside from resettling villagers, the agricultural base itself would require substantial capital. So Feng Shua began considering whether he should ask Long Tianhai for help later. For someone like him, funding such a housing project would be effortless. Of course, in the end, it all depended on Long Wanqing's approval. Without her consent, it would be pointless. A few days later, while Feng Shua was still pondering the housing issue, he received a call from Xiao Xuejin. On the other end of the line, Xiao spoke in a voice trembling with barely suppressed excitement. "Mr. Feng, no, Brother Feng. From today onward, you're my blood brother." Feng Shua couldn't help but smile. Clearly, Xiao Xuejin had brought in the experts and discovered something. Sure enough, Xiao continued. "Just as you said, there's a fault line beneath Luo's homestead. Now that I think back on it, I feel chills run through my limbs. If you hadn't warned me, I'd have lost everything, down to my last pair of pants. Brother Feng, I, Xiao Xuejin, will never forget your great kindness. From this moment on, we're brothers. If you ever need anything, just let me know. I'll be there without hesitation." Feng Shua's heart leapt with joy. Talk about perfect timing. Just as he was worrying over the housing plot issue, Xiao Xuejin came offering help on a silver platter. He immediately said, "In that case, may I boldly call you Brother Xiao? As it happens, I've been troubled by a problem and would like to ask for your assistance." Xiao Xuejin declared generously. "Speak freely about any difficulty. You leave it to your older brother. I'll find a way to solve it. Well, here's the situation. I'm planning to build an agricultural base in a mountain village on the outskirts of Jiangzhou. You already know about this project. But in order to establish the base, I need to properly resettle the villagers. My idea is to build a new residential plot right next to the village, so the villagers can stay close to home while still being properly accommodated. The thing is, construction isn't my specialty. So I was wondering, brother, could you possibly? Xiao Xuejin slapped his thigh in enthusiasm. Brother, even if you hadn't brought it up, I'd have come looking for you anyway. I was just about to tell you. I want to partner with you on your agricultural base project. You know, I tried running an agricultural base before, but ended up abandoning it due to countless obstacles. Now that you've cleared all the hurdles, I figured I might as well take a bold step forward and join in. What do you say, will you have me? Fang Shuo smiled broadly. Of course. If you, Brother Xiao, wish to join the project, I couldn't be more thrilled. This is truly excellent. You've lifted a huge weight off my shoulders. Xiao Xuejin said with a grin. Perfect. As for Luo's homestead, I won't develop that land anymore. It's unsuitable for housing, only fit for a shopping mall. And the money I originally planned to invest there? I'll redirect it entirely toward building your residential plot. You leave the real estate part to me. I guarantee everyone will be satisfied. Fang Shuo immediately decided. All right then, it's settled. Regarding our cooperation, come by my company tomorrow when we're back at work. I'll gather all the shareholders together. We'll hold a board meeting and discuss the specific details of our partnership. Chapter 156, Getting Addicted to Pretending. The next day, Fang Shuo gathered everyone for a board meeting and announced the news that Xiao Xuejin would be participating in the agricultural base project. His arrival was naturally welcomed. After discussion, it was decided that Xiao Xuejin would join the project by investing in the construction of homesteads. Now that official approvals for the project had been granted and the most troublesome issue, resettlement, had been resolved, all preparations for the agricultural base were complete. The project could launch anytime, as long as funding arrived. However, the funds were still contingent on Chundao's property launch, which meant there would still be a waiting period. Thus, the formal commencement of the project remained some time away. During this interim period, Fang Shuo had a few smaller matters to attend to. For example, what crops should be planted first once the project began? That needed some research. In addition, recruitment of personnel also needed to get underway. Therefore, after finalizing discussions about cooperation with Xiao Xuejin, Fang Shuo assigned tasks to each team member. Regarding crop selection, he asked Hu Yurin to visit the mountain village again for field research and gather information from local villagers. As for talent recruitment, he handed the responsibility to Qianlai. Qianlai was resourceful, well-connected, and smooth in social interactions, perfect for the job. After the meeting ended, everyone dispersed to focus on their respective duties. Just as Fang Shuo was preparing to leave, Long Wanqing stepped forward and quietly said to him, Fang Shuo, help me with something. What is it now? Fang Shuo felt a pang of unease whenever Long Wanqing asked for help. Her requests usually involved pretending to be her boyfriend again so she could deceive her father. Even though Long Tianhai hadn't raised any suspicions, lying still made Fang Shuo uncomfortable. Long Wanqing glanced around to make sure no one was nearby before whispering. Today, Longjia Company is holding a team-building event at Royal Quality KTV, and we're required to bring our significant others. Somehow, the company found out about you pretending to be my boyfriend before, and now they're all teasing me, demanding I bring you along too. I really have no choice. I have to ask you for help. Fang Shuo couldn't help but feel both amused and exasperated. Was Long Wanqing actually getting addicted to having him fake as her boyfriend? Now, even a company outing required his involvement? Look, he said, this isn't sustainable. Why don't you just come clean to your dad and your coworkers? If you keep dragging this on, how will you ever explain things later? Long Wanqing frowned. Now you're complaining? Let me tell you, asking you to pretend to be my boyfriend is me doing you a favor. If I just lift a finger, half of Jiangzhou's eligible bachelors would line up to play this role. Fang Shuo shrugged. Then go ahead and wave your hand already. With that, he turned to leave. Long Wanqing grew frustrated, a bit deflated. After all, she was undeniably beautiful. Heiress to Longhai Group, the epitome of rich, beautiful, and sophisticated. As she'd said, if she snapped her fingers, countless young elites across Jiangzhou would scramble to date her. Yet, in front of Fang Shuo, she felt completely powerless. She couldn't tell if he was simply emotionally oblivious or genuinely unimpressed by her. Either way, every encounter left her at a disadvantage. Seeing him walk away, Long Wanqing gritted her teeth, then abruptly reached out and grabbed his arm. Hey, you haven't even been forgiven for making me angry last time. This time, you have to come. We start at 6 and finish at 12. Once Guogua falls asleep, come find me. Without waiting for Fang Shuo's response, she spun around and strode off. Watching her retreating figure, Fang Shuo could only shake his head in disbelief. She was losing that aloof, icy demeanor she once had. Around him, she acted more like an ordinary woman, full of vulnerability. To an outsider, they might genuinely appear to be a couple. When work ended, Fang Shuo left the office to pick up Guogua. But just as he stepped out of the building, Xiao Mei suddenly appeared from the side. She grabbed his hand and grinned. Fang Shuo, finally you're out. Fang Shuo looked at her, surprised. What are you doing here? Xiao Mei giggled. Waiting for you, of course. Waiting for me? How did you even know I was here? Fang Shuo asked, even more baffled. That's not exactly a secret. A little asking around, and anyone can find out, Xiao Mei said smugly. Fang Shuo didn't press further, instead asking. All right, what do you want? Why are you waiting for me? I got paid. I want to treat you to dinner. You're going to pick up Guogua, right? Let's go together. That last meal doesn't count. This time, I'm properly treating you. Xiao Mei tugged at Feng Shua's arm. Feng Shua tried to pull his hand back, but Xiao Mei was holding it tightly, so much that he couldn't free himself right away. Helplessly, he said, "Sorry, I have plans tonight, so I can't go. Let's do it another time." Xiao Mei's smile quickly faded, and her eyes dimmed with disappointment. Just then, Long Wanqing emerged from the building. When she saw Xiao Mei holding Feng Shua's hand, her expression instantly darkened. She strode over and glared coldly at Xiao Mei. "What are you two doing?" Xiao Mei had met Long Wanqing before and knew who she was. Instinctively, she snatched her hand back and took a step backward, looking as guilty as a thief caught in the act. Forcing a nervous smile, she bowed slightly to Long Wanqing. "Miss Long, hello. I came here to see Feng Shua. He helped me a lot before, so I wanted to treat him to dinner as a thank you." Long Wanqing glanced at Feng Shua, then turned back to Xiao Mei with a blank expression. "I'm sorry, but he's busy today. He has plans with me tonight, so he can't make it. If you want to invite him, just schedule earlier next time." Whether it was real or just her imagination, Xiao Mei felt an invisible pressure emanating from Long Wanqing, a weight so strong it made her feel small, unable to lift her head or meet the other woman's gaze. Lowering her eyes, she stammered, "Why yes, I understand. I'll make plans earlier next time. Since you two are together, I'll leave now." With that, Xiao Mei turned and fled. Only when she was far away did she finally breathe easy. Long Wanqing was truly terrifying. If possible, Xiao Mei never wanted to face her again. Watching Xiao Mei run off, Long Wanqing let out a cold snort. Then she turned to Feng Shua. "Let's go. Head to Royal Quality KTV together." Feng Shua frowned. "I haven't even agreed yet. Besides, I need to pick up Guogua first. At the earliest, I can come after my daughter falls asleep." Long Wanqing shook her head. "No need. I've already talked to your little assistant. I asked her to pick up the child for you. I gave her 200 yuan. After picking up Guogua, she'll take her out for dinner and then bring her back home. Anyway, it's not the first time your little helper has picked up your daughter. You can trust her. Now, do you have anything else to say?" Chapter 157 True Friend. There was nothing more Feng Shua could say. He sighed deeply and, with no choice, followed Long Wanqing into the car. They arrived at Royal Karaoke. Feng Shua let Long Wanqing go in first while he went to park the car. After parking, just as Feng Shua was about to head inside, he heard someone calling from behind. "Brother Feng, Brother Feng." He turned and saw Chen Dayo waving at him. Beside Chen Dayo stood a tall, burly man with dyed blonde hair and a scar across his face. This rough-looking man had a fierce appearance, dressed in a light-colored suit with a thick gold chain around his neck. He looked exactly like some underworld thug. That Chen Dayo was with this man clearly meant they knew each other. But Feng Shua wasn't surprised. Developers like Chen inevitably had connections in all kinds of circles. These property developers often encountered unreasonable or deliberately obstructive holdouts when relocating original residents. With such stubborn people, normal methods rarely worked to get them to move. So at times like that, they needed people from the underworld to resort to shady tactics to force these people out. Feng Shua always thought such methods were disgraceful and somewhat despicable. But honestly speaking, if there were other options, who would choose such means? Thus, although Feng Shua disliked it, he wouldn't stand on moral high ground to condemn anyone. Feng Shua nodded slightly at Chen Dayo and smiled. Chen immediately dragged the rough man over quickly. "Brother Feng, what a coincidence. Never expected to run into you here," Chen Dayo said excitedly. Feng Shua replied with a smile. "I'm here with a friend to sing some songs." Chen Dayo gestured toward the rough man beside him. "Come, let me introduce you to a friend. This is Wang Long, my childhood buddy and sworn brother." Then turning to Wang Long, he said, "This is Feng Shua, the one I've told you so much about. He saved my life." Feng Shua dismissed it lightly. "Old brother Chen, stop calling me your savior. I've already said, I only gave you a few words of advice. If you hadn't listened, I wouldn't have been able to do anything anyway." Chen Dayo shook his head. No, brother Feng. Saving someone begins with saving their heart. Back then, even if I'd been physically stopped, I might still have found another chance to end my life. It was your words that gave me hope to live again. So yes, you are my savior. No matter how much you deny it, that's simply the truth." Seeing Chen's insistence, Feng Shua decided not to argue further. At that moment, Wang Long stared intently at Feng Shua, his eyes flickering with unknown thoughts. Suddenly, he grabbed Feng Shua's hand, saying passionately, "Big brother Feng, by saving old Chen's life, you've also saved mine. From now on, you're my brother too. If anyone dares mess with you in Jiangzhou, come find me. I'll have your back." Seeing how emotional Wang Long was, Feng Shua guessed their bond must be incredibly strong. Then again, it made sense. They were childhood friends and sworn brothers. Their relationship was just like blood brothers. In his previous life, Feng Shua had once had a close friend as well. Their bond resembled that between Wang Long and Chen Dayo. No matter what happened to one, the other would give everything to help. Feng Shua smiled. "Brother Wang, you're flattering me. You're much older than I am. I can't possibly be your elder brother. And like I said, I only spoke a few words. There's no need for you to repay me." Chen Dayo patted Wang Long on the shoulder. "Long, Feng Shua's right. If you really want to repay him, don't just talk about it. Show it through action." Wang Long nodded vigorously, then said generously, Right. Well said. Brother Feng is here for karaoke at Royal, right? No matter how much you spend tonight, it's all on the house." Feng Shua was taken aback at first, but quickly understood. Wang Long must either be the manager or the owner of Royal Karaoke. Otherwise he wouldn't have such authority. Looking at his outfit, especially that thick gold chain around his neck, Fang Shua guessed he was probably the owner. Running such a high-end karaoke club in downtown Jiangzhou, clearly Wang Long was doing quite well in the underworld. In a place teeming with shady characters, you couldn't maintain control without real clout. Fang Shua shook his head. No need, I appreciate the offer, Brother Wang. But I'm here for a company team-building event with my friend. The bill's covered by their company, so no need to waive anything for me. Wang Long was straightforward and didn't push. He simply nodded and said, all right then, I'll treat you another time. Fang Shua checked his watch. Old Brother Chun, Brother Wang, my friend is waiting for me inside. I'll take my leave now. With that, he bid farewell to Wang Long and Chun Dayo and turned to walk away. Watching Fang Shua's retreating figure, Chun Dayo edged to Wang Long. Long, I owe him such a huge debt of gratitude. I really need to find a way to repay him. Wang Long nodded. Of course, without you, there would be no me. And since he saved your life, it's the same as saving mine. By that logic, he's my savior too. As he spoke, Wang Long paused and thought. Even though someone else is treating him tonight, so I don't need to waive the bill. Still, I can give him some good liquor. I've got a rare bottle in storage. I'll go fetch it and send it over later. Chun Dayo slapped his thigh. Right? Give him that law fight I left with you. Oh, and throw in a membership card. Wang Long laughed. How did I not think of the membership card? No wonder you're my big brother. You've got a sharper mind than me. Chun Dayo waved his hand. Go take care of it now. From now on, keep an eye out for him around Jiangzhou. If any fool dares mess with Brother Fang, teach him a lesson. Don't hold back for my sake. Wang Long thumped his chest. Big brother, rest assured. I won't make promises lightly, but as long as they're operating within Jiangzhou, I guarantee no one will dare lay a finger on him. If anyone else had said that, Chun Dayo would have dismissed it as empty talk. But when Wang Long said it, it was different. He wasn't boasting. Who in the Jiangzhou underworld hadn't heard of the legend of Jiangzhou's one and only dragon? In his younger days, Wang Long was famously reckless, fearless, aggressive, and fighting like he had nothing to lose. People feared him. Through sheer grit and daring, he carved out a name for himself in Jiangzhou's underworld. Even seasoned gang leaders showed him respect and never dared provoke him. But as he grew older, he gradually tired of the violence. Nearly losing his life several times made him determined to change his path. Once resolved, he began learning business. After years of effort, he successfully opened this royal karaoke club. Now, he had wealth, influence, and status. At just a shout from him, every underworld figure in Jiangzhou would answer the call. So if he truly intended to protect someone, no one in Jiangzhou would ever dare touch Fang Shua. Chapter 158, Team Building Activity. Following the information left by Long Wanqing, Fang Shua found his way to the largest private room. As he pushed open the door and stepped inside, he discovered a large group already gathered within, no fewer than 12 or 13 people. The noisy chatter that had filled the room instantly ceased the moment they saw Fang Shua enter, as if someone had hit a pause button. Every pair of eyes turned toward him, making him feel slightly uncomfortable. At that moment, Long Wanqing stood up and walked over to Fang Shua's side, introducing him to the group. Everyone, this is my boyfriend, Fang Shua. Smiles appeared on everyone's faces as they nodded and greeted him warmly, and Fang Shua responded with a polite smile in return. Long Wanqing took Fang Shua's arm and led him to the sofa, where they sat down together. She then picked up the menu and asked, what would you like to drink? Order whatever you want. Fang Shua didn't answer immediately. Instead, he quietly observed the atmosphere in the room. He noticed that Long Wanqing kept at least 2 meters of distance between herself and the others. She seemed like an outsider. Unlike the rest of the staff, she wasn't mingling, chatting, or snacking with them. This subtle detail earned silent admiration from Fang Shua. This was exactly how a competent manager should behave. As company president, attending team-building events was necessary for her. If she skipped such activities, it would set a poor example, making it difficult to rally participation in future events. Yet as their superior, she couldn't be too close to her employees either. Being overly familiar would make management harder later on. That was precisely why many business leaders preferred not to hire relatives. Too much familiarity made it difficult to reprimand or correct mistakes when they occurred. Running a company was no child's game. It was serious work that required objectivity and impartiality. Right was right, wrong was wrong. Personal feelings had no place in it. Thus, Long Wanqing maintaining her distance was a wise move. Moreover, having the boss present could make employees uneasy. By keeping a physical distance of more than 2 meters, Long Wanqing participated in the event without making anyone feel constrained. Fang Shua's arrival had instantly shifted the mood. The young staff members, who had previously been chatting freely, now changed their topics and occasionally stole glances at him, whispering and chuckling quietly among themselves. But the room was noisy, and they spoke too softly. He couldn't make out what they were saying. Just act natural, Long Wanqing whispered beside him. None of my people are fools. If you show even the slightest sign of faking it, they'll notice immediately. Fang Shua shrugged. It's not like I haven't done this before. I think we've got enough chemistry for this. Long Wanqing didn't respond directly, instead saying, I ordered you some soft drink. You'll be driving later, so better skip the alcohol. But as the boss, I won't be able to avoid drinking tonight. A faint smile crossed Fang Shua's face. Honestly, even if you hadn't called me here, you'd have found a way to handle things on your own, right? As the boss, why would you care about your subordinates pressuring you? You just wanted a designated driver to take you home, didn't you? Hearing this, Long Wanqing's expression darkened slightly. Is that really how you see me? If that's what you truly believe, then go ahead and leave. I'm sure I can afford to hire a driver. Fang Shua chuckled. You're too sensitive. I was just joking. Long Wanqing rolled her eyes and turned away, refusing to look at him. The two of them continued talking as if no one else were around, their little gestures and expressions unnoticed by neither of them, but very much visible to everyone else in the room. Though their actions and facial expressions came naturally, to the onlookers, they resembled nothing less than a couple playfully bickering. "Hey, did you see that?" The boss actually rolled her eyes, a young woman whispered. "In all the time I've known her, she only knows how to yell. This is the first time I've seen her react like a normal person. Who exactly is this guy?" He actually melted the Chan Ice Queen. "Our director Song pursued her for ages and never stood a chance. Yet this man actually won her over," said a young man. "They just clicked, I guess. But honestly, this guy is pretty handsome. It makes sense that Boss Long would go for him." "Uffed, you superficial girl. If we're talking about looks, isn't Director Song handsome too?" Logically, since Boss Long and Director Song are both partners and work closely together, they should have developed feelings by now. So why doesn't she like him? Everyone sighed and shook their heads. Could it be that Director Song has some hidden flaw that Boss Long finds unacceptable? A younger boy whispered with a mischievous grin. That remark was like a spark igniting firecrackers. Soon, everyone was caught up in the topic, speculating wildly. Laughing and teasing, they got more and more carried away, until their voices grew louder and louder. Just as they were deep into their chatter, a cold snort suddenly cut through the air. Everyone's expression changed instantly. They quickly lowered their heads and stole furtive glances toward the direction the sound came from. There sat a young man in a sharp suit, handsome and well-dressed, positioned right in the middle of the group. His expression was dark, and he kept downing glass after glass of alcohol. Ever since Fang Shua had walked in, the man's eyes hadn't left him for a second. This youth was Song Jiahe, Long Wanqing's business partner, and the director Song, just mentioned by the staff. Longjia Investment Management Company, Limited was jointly founded by Long Wanqing and Song Jiahe. The company's name was even derived from one character each from their names. In the investment industry, Song Jiahe had a modest reputation. He had spent many years working in financial investment on Wall Street, gaining a sharp eye and extensive experience. It was precisely because of his expertise that Long Wanqing chose him as her partner to establish Longjia Investment. The two had struggled side by side, worked closely together, and forged an unshakable friendship through their shared efforts. But somewhere along the way, without realizing it, Song Jiahe had transformed that friendship into love. In the company, everyone knew that Song Jiahe had feelings for Long Wanqing, and it had long become casual gossip during idle conversations. Song Jiahe himself didn't hide it. He believed that sooner or later, Long Wanqing would be his. But Long Wanqing felt nothing for him. Beyond work, she avoided any discussion about personal feelings. What troubled Song Jiahe most was that recently, someone had anonymously revealed that Long Wanqing was already in a relationship, and not only that, but they had even had a daughter together. It was said that Long Wanqing's father, Long Tianhai, was already aware of this. The news had been like dropping a stone into a calm lake, sending ripples spreading everywhere. When Song Jiahe first heard the rumor, he was utterly shocked. Yet having worked alongside Long Wanqing for years, he had never once seen her with another man. So he remained deeply skeptical about the entire matter. It was actually Song Jiahe who had proposed this team-building event include partners, his sole intention being to see for himself whether this so-called boyfriend truly existed or not. Chapter 159 Work Partner. Song Jiahe thought for a moment, picked up the bottle of alcohol from the table, walked over to Fang Shua, and sat down beside him. He poured a glass and handed it over, saying at the same time, "Mr. Fang, I've long heard your name. It's truly an honor to finally meet you today." Fang Shua took the glass and placed it gently on the coffee table. "I'm sorry, but I'll be driving later, so I can't drink. May I ask how I should address you?" "Song Jiahe. I'm Wanqing's business partner. Longjia was founded by the two of us. Our company's name combines one character from each of our names. Don't you think that shows great chemistry between us?" Song Jiahe said with a smile. Fang Shua nodded. "So you're President Song. My apologies for not realizing earlier, my deepest respect. In today's environment, it's truly admirable that you're still dedicating yourself to the investment industry." But Song Jiahe wasn't flattered by Fang Shua's courtesy. He gave a faint smile. "And what exactly do you do, Mr. Fang?" Fang Shua paused, then replied thoughtfully. "How should I put it? I suppose you could say I'm self-employed." Well, that wasn't inaccurate. Ever since his reincarnation, Fang Shua hadn't committed himself to any fixed profession. Whatever brought profit, that's what he did. From being a small street vendor, to running a restaurant, flipping equipment, buying shares, he operated like a sniper, one shot, then move on. Even now that he had started focusing more seriously on establishing agricultural bases, once operations were stable, he would hand them off and move to something else. Strictly speaking, Fang Shua was indeed self-employed, because his ventures spanned countless different industries. Yet to Song Jiahe, those words carried a completely different connotation. Typically, when someone said they worked, they meant within a particular industry or field. Take himself, for example, at the narrowest level, he was in venture capital, more broadly, finance. Only those without a steady job, or people unemployed at home, would describe themselves as self-employed. The term was often just a polite euphemism for being jobless. A flicker of contempt and disdain crossed Song Jiahe's face, and his attitude toward Fang Shua began to turn condescending. He couldn't understand how Long Wanqing, such an outstanding woman, could possibly be attracted to a directionless drifter. Could it really be, as others whispered, because Fang Shua was handsome? But when it came to looks, Song Jiahe was confident he wouldn't lose to anyone. And honestly, Fang Shua wasn't even the type of man with godlike beauty. So Song Jiahe just couldn't figure it out. He couldn't, for the life of him, make sense of it. The more he thought about it, The more convinced he became, Long Wanqing must have simply dragged some random guy along as a decoy. Feng Shuai was nothing more than a placeholder, a prop she'd brought along to shut everyone up. Once this idea solidified in his mind, Song Jiahe allowed himself a cold, inward smirk. He began plotting how best to seize an opportunity and expose this imposter's true colors. Even if he couldn't outright reveal the truth on the spot, making Feng Shuai look ridiculous in public would still be deeply satisfying. If Feng lost face, it would reflect badly on Long Wanqing. That way, she'd probably never dare bring this fraud around in front of others again. Ignoring Feng Shuai completely, Song Jiahe turned to Long Wanqing and said, "Wanqing, there's an international art exhibition next month in Jiangzhou. The organizer is the world-renowned San Marino Art Center. Our company has been actively investing in art lately, so I'm thinking we should invest in this exhibition. If we pull it off, it would significantly boost our company's reputation." Long Wanqing shook her head. "I don't think it's necessary. Events like this are usually just formalities. Unless there's a major piece capable of anchoring the entire exhibition, the event won't carry much weight. And without prestige, we can't attract serious artists or painters to participate. So I believe this would be a waste of time. There's no reason to invest." Song Jiahe smiled. "Who says there isn't going to be a showstopper? Reliable sources confirm that the exhibition will feature the world-famous painting Flowers of Evil. With that single masterpiece on display, the exhibition's caliber will rival the very best in the world." Long Wanqing was visibly startled, her expression turning serious. "You're serious? Flowers of Evil will actually be shown? If that's true, then I'll definitely reconsider my opinion of this exhibition." Song Jiahe spoke confidently. "Of course it's true. Wanqing, come with me to Europe next week. I've already contacted the director of the San Marino Art Center. We can discuss the investment details in person." The two of them began chatting back and forth about work, while Feng Shuai, sitting awkwardly in the middle as an outsider, found himself completely excluded from the conversation. This made Feng Shuai feel superfluous, trapped between Song Jiahe and Long Wanqing like an unwanted third wheel. So Song Jiahe patted Feng Shuai. "Mr. Feng, could we switch seats? Can't you see Wanqing and I are discussing something important?" Feng Shuai nodded and was just about to stand up to swap places with Song Jiahe, when unexpectedly Long Wanqing suddenly grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" Feng Shuai pointed toward Song Jiahe. "You two are talking business, and I'm kind of in the way. If I switch seats with President Song, it'll be more convenient for you to talk." Long Wanqing rolled her eyes. "This isn't work hours. After work, my time is entirely personal. We were just chatting casually a moment ago, no intention of continuing with business talk." She turned to look at Song Jiahe. "President Song, I'm right, aren't I?" Song Jiahe's face reddened slightly with embarrassment, but he still nodded quickly. Yes, absolutely. Sorry about that. I tend to get carried away when discussing work." Feng Shuai smiled, about to speak, when suddenly a piece of information flashed through his mind. In his previous life, he had once seen a news article about this very exhibition. The report stated that the world-famous painting displayed there was later exposed as a forgery. After that news broke, the exhibition was overshadowed by scandal. Originally scheduled to run for a month, it ended abruptly after only a week. In other words, this exhibition was a huge trap. Anyone who invested would end up losing money. And it wasn't just about financial loss. More importantly, their reputation would suffer too. Who would trust Longjia's investment judgment in the future if they couldn't even distinguish genuine art from fakes? Truthfully, Feng Shuai had only glanced at that news item before and hadn't paid much attention. But for some reason, things he'd seen but overlooked in his past life now resurfaced in vivid clarity in this one. For instance, the fact that there was a geological fault beneath the Luo family mansion. Something he had also seen reported before but hadn't cared much about, since it had no direct relevance to him. Yet in this lifetime, the information spontaneously surfaced in his mind, remembered with exceptional precision. Feng Shuai couldn't explain why this was happening, but regardless, it was probably a good thing. At least it could help him avoid risks. Chapter 160, that's a fake. Since it involved Long Wanqing's company's investment project, Feng Shuai didn't hide anything. He lowered his voice and said to Long Wanqing, "I'd advise you not to get involved in this art exhibition." Long Wanqing was taken aback. "Why? I'll be blunt. The piece being used to promote the exhibition and elevate its prestige, the Flowers of Evil, is actually a counterfeit. If this gets exposed, the organizers will of course be disgraced, but your company, as an investor, will also suffer collateral damage." Hearing this, Long Wanqing's face turned serious. In the past, she might have doubted what Feng Shuai had said, but after everything they'd been through, she trusted him completely. She knew that Feng Shuai never joked, especially about serious matters. If he said the artwork was fake, then it very likely was. Although Long Wanqing had no experience with art, she understood that if a forgery appeared at a major international exhibition, especially one claiming to be a world-renowned masterpiece, it would be a devastating blow to the entire event. She asked gravely, "How reliable is this information?" Feng Shuai nodded seriously. "Absolutely reliable." "All right, I understand. I'll discuss this further with Song Jiahe," Long Wanqing replied. Seeing the two whispering together, Song Jiahe felt uncomfortable. He said, "Wanqing, what are you two talking about so secretly? So mysterious?" Feng Shuai smiled calmly. "Nothing important. Just a personal matter." But Long Wanqing didn't hold back at all. "We were just discussing your investment in this art exhibition. That so-called masterpiece, The Flowers of Evil, is actually a fake. So I think we should withdraw our investment." As soon as Long Wanqing finished speaking, everyone's gaze turned toward them. Song Jiahe had mentioned this art exhibition investment more than once before, and he was highly optimistic about the project, having done extensive research for it. Yet now Long Wanqing had dismissed his idea with a single sentence. If it had been anyone else, Song Jiahe would have exploded on the spot. Everyone present grew uneasy, fearing that Song Jiahe and Long Wanqing might break into an open argument right there. A stiff expression spread across Song Jiahe's face. He looked at Long Wanqing, then at Feng Shuo, and Bencheng managed to smile. Wanqing, you're an experienced professional in investments. How can you dismiss my judgment based on the words of an outsider? Long Wanqing shook her head. I trust Feng Shuo. If he says the flowers of evil is a fake, he's almost certainly right. Song Jiahe's smile faded. His face darkened as he turned to Feng Shuo. Mr. Feng, you claim the flowers of evil is a fake. What evidence do you have? Feng Shuo felt awkward under the gaze of so many people. He had only meant to quietly warn Long Wanqing, but never expected her to openly oppose Song Jiahe's investment project in front of everyone. Perhaps because they were close and worked as partners, Long Wanqing didn't hold back with Song Jiahe. She spoke her mind freely without much consideration. But this put Feng Shuo in a difficult position. Long Wanqing had followed his advice and rejected the investment, which, in Song Jiahe's eyes, looked like nothing short of sabotage. Without even asking, Feng Shuo knew Song Jiahe would probably hate him forever after this. Faced with Song Jiahe's challenge, Feng Shuo stammered for a while, unable to give a coherent response. What could he say? That he could see the future? That he had special abilities? Even if he did say that, would anyone believe him? Yet with so many eyes on him, staying silent wouldn't resolve anything. So Feng Shuo cleared his throat and quickly made up an explanation on the spot. As far as I know, this famous painting was stolen last century. Countless people searched for years but never found it, he said, rapidly organizing his thoughts based on what he knew. Song Jiahe sneered. That's no secret. Anyone with basic knowledge of art knows that. Yes, it was stolen, but after World War II ended, the painting was rediscovered. Feng Shuo nodded. That's correct, it was indeed found again. But few people know the truth. The painting itself was already a forgery. The person who found it colluded with several well-known authentication experts to inflate its value. Thanks to those bribed experts, the world came to believe it was genuine. It was sold at an extremely high price and eventually acquired by a museum, where it remains on display. No sooner had he finished speaking than Song Jiahe snapped. Utter nonsense. Everything you've said is unverifiable. Most likely you made it all up. Otherwise, how come I've never heard any of this? Feng Shuo shrugged. Just because you haven't heard of it doesn't mean it didn't happen. If you don't believe me, how about we make a bet? Although the story he had just told was completely made up, the outcome was already set in stone. That's exactly why Feng Shuo proposed the bet, to shift everyone's focus to the result. As long as everyone came to know the painting was a fake, no matter how absurd his reasoning sounded, they would believe him. Compared to the explanation, the outcome clearly mattered more. Song Jiahe was extremely confident in himself and held Feng Shuo in utter contempt. How could he possibly believe some random excuse made up by an unemployed drifter? Without hesitation, he nodded. Fine, I'll take your bet. Tell me, what are we wagering? Feng Shuo thought for a moment and said, I don't care, I'll leave it up to you. Song Jiahe was taken aback at first, then broke into a pleased smile. Letting Feng Shuo choose? This was perfect. He couldn't have asked for more. He wanted nothing more than to humiliate Feng Shuo in front of everyone. Once Feng Shuo was disgraced, Long Wanqing would lose face too. And once Long Wanqing lost her dignity, there would be no way Feng Shuo could continue pretending to be her boyfriend. Just earlier, he'd been wondering how to crush Feng Shuo beneath his feet, and now Feng Shuo had handed him the opportunity on a silver platter. This was a golden chance to utterly destroy the man's pride. So Song Jiahe said, here's the deal. If you lose, you must sincerely apologize to me, in front of everyone here. Feng Shuo asked, that's all? Just an apology? Song Jiahe sneered proudly, that's all. If I were to demand compensation from you, I doubt you could even afford it. Feng Shuo nodded. All right, fine. But if you lose, what then? Song Jiahe let out a cold laugh. If I lose? Me? I've never lost a bet in my life. Feng Shuo shrugged again. Now that's not very fair. If we're making a bet, both sides should be treated equally. If I lose, I'll apologize willingly. So if you lose, shouldn't you do the same? Song Jiahe snorted. Fine, I agree. But I won't lose, so you better start preparing yourself to apologize to me in front of everyone. Chapter 161, Duet by a Couple. Feng Shuo smiled and remained silent. Although Song Jiahe had made the bet, he still felt deeply annoyed. As the vice president of Longjia, being challenged by an idle nobody made him feel as if his dignity had been trampled. The atmosphere in the private room grew awkward, and no one dared to speak loudly anymore. Long Wanqing noticed this and couldn't help but frown at Song Jiahe. Everyone had come out for team building, to relax and unwind. Who would have thought he'd lack the sense to bring up work here? Now he'd ruined the mood. What was the point of such a gathering? Fortunately, someone among her staff caught on quickly. Sensing the tension, they immediately queued up a lively song and invited everyone to sing along. And indeed, the awkwardness soon melted away, replaced once more by laughter and cheer filling the room. As the song ended, the next track began to play, a romantic duet meant specifically for couples present. Before anyone could grab the microphone, Song Jiahe stood up first. This song is my signature piece. Sorry everyone, but I'll go first. When the vice president claimed it, who dared compete with him? Someone even handed him the mic as an act of flattery. Holding two microphones, Song Jiahe passed one to Long Wanqing. Wanqing, sing this one with me. She shook her head calmly. Ask someone else. I'm not good at singing. But he persisted. It's fine. I know this song perfectly. If you don't know the lyrics, I can guide you. Watching from the side, Fang Shuo observed Song Jiahua closely. Of course, he deliberately picked a love duet to sing with Long Wanqing. The intention was obvious. But could Long Wanqing, a woman of such high intelligence and emotional awareness, fail to see through this petty scheme? It was clear without thinking that Song Jiahua would be rejected. Yet, to everyone's surprise, the man had such thick skin that he kept pushing, shamelessly insisting she perform the duet with him, right in front of so many colleagues, and with her boyfriend sitting right there. He was being so brazen. He really didn't think much of himself. Under Song Jiahua's persistent pressure, Long Wanqing finally took the microphone. But before Song Jiahua could savor his small victory, she snatched the second microphone from his hand and turned to